this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Hi, it's Jill Winterstein, host of the Spirit Daughter podcast, where we talk about astrology, natal charts, and how to step into your most vibrant life. And today I'm talking with my dear friend, Krista Williams.
It can change you in the best way possible. Dance with the change, dance with the breakdowns.
The embodiment of Pisces intuition with Capricorn power moves.
So I'm like delusionally proud of my chart.
Listen to the Spirit Daughter podcast starting on February 24th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
I'm Clayton Eckerd. In 2022, I was the lead of ABC's The Bachelor.
But here's the thing. Bachelor fans hated him.
If I could press a button and rewind it all, I would.
That's when his life took a disturbing turn. A one-night stand would end in a courtroom.
The media is here. This case has gone viral.
The dating contract.
Agree to date me, but I'm also suing you.
This is unlike anything I've ever seen before.
I'm Stephanie Young. Listen to Love Trapped on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Special Agent Regal, Special Agent Bradley Hall.
In 2018, the FBI took down a ring of spies working for China's Ministry of State Security, one of the most mysterious intelligence agencies in the world.
The Sixth Bureau podcast is a story of the inner workings of the MSS and how one man's ambition and mistakes opened its vault of secrets.
Listen to The Sixth Bureau on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Amanda Knox, and in the new podcast, Doubt, The Case of Lucy Letby, we unpack the story of an unimaginable tragedy that gripped the UK in 2023. But what if we didn't get the whole story?
Evidence has been made to fit.
The moment you look at the whole picture, the case collapsed.
What if the truth was disguised by a story we chose to believe?
Oh my God, I think she might be innocent.
Listen to Doubt, The Case of Lucy Letby on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everybody, Robert Evans here, and I wanted to let you know this is a compilation episode. So every episode of the week that just happened is here in one convenient and with somewhat less ads package for you to listen to in a long stretch if you want. If you've been listening to the episodes every day this week, there's going to be nothing new here for you, but you can make your own decisions.
Welcome to It Could Happen Here, a podcast about things falling apart. And today there's a little bit of them getting put back together, but today's mostly them falling apart. I'm your host, Christopher Wong. With me, I have Lucy, who is a teacher in Chicago Public Schools and is part of the Teachers Union. And today we're going to be talking about just the absolute shit show that is being inflicted on teachers and students in Chicago Public Schools. And Lucy, how are you doing?
It's been kind of weird, but all in all, I'm in good spirits. I think my sisters and brothers in CTU are in good spirits. So we're going to keep fighting the good fight.
Hell yeah. So before we fully start to get into the Teachers Union and Lori Lightfoot's fuckery, I want to sort of get a bit of context for people who don't live in Chicago or just don't know much about Illinois politics, because Lori, if you read sort of like media accounts of this, like you may be sort of misled into thinking that there's like even some semblance of good faith going on here from Lori Lightfoot. And like I just want to like do a Lori Lightfoot greatest hits reel for a second. So Lightfoot, like immediately after she got elected, like the first thing she does is she's like, okay, there's too much crime on the subway. We're gonna put SWAT teams on them. And so you just be on the red line and there's a SWAT team. And, because, again, this is what happens when you put a SWAT team on the fucking subway. They immediately shot a dude in the back for nothing. Just literally no reason. They just shot him in the back. So that was the first, like, few weeks of Lightfoot. And then during the uprising, she turned the rich part of Chicago into, like, a medieval castle. Like, she, raised all the drawbridges into the middle of the city so that no one could get into the central part of the city. It was awful. And then, as we sort of there's more and more sort of bad Lightfoot stuff. Most recently, so Chicago got a bunch of aid money from the federal government, and she spent $281 million of it paying the police.
Not the schools.
Yeah, nope. And CPD these again, I think I've talked about this before, but like when the CIA was like, our initial torturing program failed, where do we go to like find people who know how to torture? They brought in a Chicago police detective, like, and and this is CPD, like there's two halves of CPD, right? There's like the torture CPD, and then related to them but not necessarily identical is the part of the CPD that's just a cartel. Like there was a thing in at the beginning of the 2010s where like it turned out that like the huge parts of the CPD were literally just a cartel. They were running drugs. They were just like doing shakedowns and like one person total like got arrested by the FBI for it, and everyone else is just still there. It's great. It's a time. So this is who Lori Lightfoot is. She sucks. Like everyone hates her. Like her, the people who should be her political allies hate her. Like Chicago got like a police reform bill, and the reason it was like a very mild one, but the reason it happened was just that like the alderman passed it out of just pure spite because of how much they don't like Lightfoot. So this has been my Christopher shouts at Lori Lightfoot intro to this. But yeah, needless to say, Lightfoot not acting in good faith, just absolutely awful.
She's a Batman villain.
Yeah,
she's a Batman villain.
It's incredible.
No, actually, that's not fair because a lot of Batman villains are kind of right.
Yeah,
she's not.
Yeah, she's like the nightmare fusion of like Batman and a Batman villain. It's like what if you took the worst aspects of both and then made them the mayor? It's a
yeah. I've been kind of so I moved here almost a year ago from a smaller city, and I did not like the mayor in my city, and he really was a big fan of like the Lori Lightfoot playbook, but I guess people weren't as politically involved there. And my first week working in Chicago public schools, somebody mentioned the mayor, mentioned Lori, and everybody kind of groaned. And I was like, oh, you don't like her? You don't like your mayor? And I mean, I knew they didn't, but I was just kind of testing the waters. And this lady looks at me and goes, we hate her. I swear, like if you mention her name.
Yeah.
In this city, people practically spit on the ground.
It's amazing because again, like
Chicago, you mentioned a demon.
Yeah, it's like Chicago notoriously, we all hate our politicians, but like Lightfoot, like there were, you would find Rahm Emanuel supporters, right? Like Lightfoot.
I don't know like, a single Lori like outside of the schools, within the schools, everyone I know.
Yeah, it's like even the cops don't like her. Like she keeps funneling hundreds of billions of dollars into them, and they still don't like her. It's like it's incredible.
How do you unite the teachers union and the police union on something? That's the only thing that they've ever agreed on is fuck Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah, it's really incredible. So Lori Lightfoot's latest scheme. Yeah, do you want to explain? I guess go back a little bit into the history of sort of how Chicago and Chicago public schools have kind of been responding to COVID, and then how they just did this stuff. And yeah, I guess give us some background, like what's going on right now.
Well, I'm going to preface with two things. One, I am fairly new here, so I don't know all of the details. And two, I really want to emphasize that I'm just here talking for myself. I don't represent CTU in any way. This is just, I wanted to talk about my feelings on things. So what I do know is they were doing remote learning. And when I arrived here in March, we were fully remote. And then in the fourth marking period, so like around like after spring break, we moved to a hybrid model. So we had parents and kids could like choose if they wanted to stay online or if they wanted to be in person. I think like 60% or more, depending on what school, chose the online option. Like a lot of parents just were not comfortable putting their kids in. Yeah. I know that there's been like a ton of talk about, like the most economically disadvantaged families need the schools open, but it's kind of been the reverse. It's been the people who have more means are more interested in opening, and people who are less well off are a little more resistant to it. I mean, that's not the same across the board. I don't want to generalize too much, but that's been what I've seen. I think if I had to guess, there's a lot of history behind that. Like, I mean, first of all, just can your family afford an illness like this? And people living in multi-generational households. And I think something that CPS and our government in general really fail to acknowledge is just how much mistrust there is between government institutions, public schools, and people of color. I mean, for good reason. They have been repeatedly just screwed over by these institutions. And I can absolutely understand why they might not trust a school district that says, hey, we'll keep your kids safe, because they weren't doing it before the pandemic.
Yep.
So I had like 7 kids in one of my classes and like 10 in another. And then the rest of them were online. And I'm like sitting at a computer teaching to the kids online and to the kids in the room.
Yeah.
All the kids in the room are on their computers too, so that we can like still be like one cohesive class. It was hard, and it was like kind of like mentally fatiguing, like just going back and forth like that. But we made it work. I was really proud of us. Like, we made it work. We made it happen. We stayed in contact with the families and the kids constantly. And like, as things moved on and as numbers started going down, more people started wanting their kids back. And then after spring break, after spring break, they let people come back. And then as we moved towards summer, more and more kids were coming back, the school I was in was, handling it very well. Our principal was really committed to like keeping us safe. So there was, testing, like once a week, somebody would come by and be like, yo, go get your COVID test. I don't know if kids were being tested, but I know teachers were. Then summer happens. I ended up in a different school in the Austin neighborhood, which is a lot less advantaged than the one that I had been working in. And we opened back up fully in person, no remote option, like at all. Like,
yikes.
The only people who could get remote were kids that were deemed medically fragile, but they had to, 1, submit like tons of paperwork to prove that, and 2, their siblings could not stay remote. So at that point, it's like, why? What's the point?
Yeah.
And if you were a teacher who had a medically fragile child in the schools, your kid could be remote, but you couldn't. So then, how is that going to work?
Yeah.
And I found in the school where I was, this is the issue with Chicago and with, most of the country, is some schools have more resources than others. And this school, I didn't know where to get tested. Nobody told me. I think there was some kind of testing program, not sure. Definitely nothing for students. I've since moved to a high school that has more resources, but still I have not been able to figure out where the heck to get testing, which has been one of the biggest things that CTU is asking for. Is we want opt-out testing instead of opt-in testing. So you would automatically be registered to test, and if you didn't want to test, then you would have to opt out, which would end up with far more people getting tested and make it a lot easier, because a big part of why people aren't signing up is it's really hard. Like, I don't know where to find it. Everyone's like, it's in your email somewhere. I've searched my email. I don't know. Like, we get 800 emails a day.
And it's, I think anyone who remembers what being in a school is like, they have, just the absolute worst bureaucratic stuff. Like, it's like, honestly, my experiences with academia and even back in high school, their tech stuff was worse than corporate tech stuff, which is astounding.
Mm-hmm. It is ridiculous.
Do you want to jump into Lightfoot's Lightfoot has invented a new kind of COVID denialism, which is she's now turned into a COVID test denialist.
It's weird.
It's incredible. She went on this rant about how COVID testing is a quote quasi-medical procedure and how they're gonna get lawsuits. It's bizarre.
So this journalist asked her about the testing, because I don't know which journalist that was, but I want to thank them so much, because I've seen a lot of the reporters are actually out there trying to keep CTU's demands in the conversation, as opposed to this like whole, oh, lazy teachers don't want to work. Like, fuck off. We do want to be working.
Yeah.
But so I almost thought that she had like mixed up what this person said and thought that they were talking about vaccines. But even so, like, stop it. Just stop doing that. But who is having a reaction to a COVID test? It is like literally a Q-tip. It's a Q-tip. Like, you just stick it. They don't even stick it that far up your nose anymore. They just do the little in your nostril or like a mouth swab.
Yeah, like, and I was just like, I as someone who had like, I genuinely did have a kind of bad reaction because the guy jabbed it up really far and like I was like sneezing a lot afterwards. But it's like, what? Oh no, you sneezed a little bit. Like, what does it even mean? Like,
and
how?
It's not like I feel like people are acting like this test is like this weird new technology. It isn't. Like, right before the pandemic, like a couple months before, I had the flu and I had exactly the same kind of test. They stuck a thing up my nose. It was hella uncomfortable. It took like 2 seconds. They stuck it on a little plastic thingamabob and said, "Oh, looks like you have the flu."
Yeah,
like it's I don't know where this is coming from. I think it's just she is not a very charismatic person, and she's not someone who does well under pressure. And right now she's backed into a corner and she's acting out. And it's been kind of wild. Like, I've seen she's also throwing other people around her under the bus.
Yeah.
Like, she says something about Pedro Martinez. Like, she says the teachers aren't in charge of this. Pedro Martinez is in charge. She's the CEO. And I'm like, okay, so you're being this is setting him up to take the blame on this.
I saw another thing that you tweeted about, like, it was she was like, no, it's actually the mayors and not the mayors. Sorry, it's actually it's the principals who are responsible for this. And the principals were like, no.
Yeah.
We don't.
CPS is kind of interesting. This can be really good or really bad depending on what school you're in. But the principals really have a lot of autonomy over their school. I've now been in 2 schools where that's worked out great. My principal rocks. If she ever hears this, I hope she knows that I said that I think she's great. Also, the principal I worked at the beginning of the school year was awful. But when it comes to like district-wide protocols, like, that's district-wide. And so CPS apparently had a meeting with principals where I heard some rumors about this too, but I also saw that letter that they had posted. The principals are, one, really frustrated because CPS isn't communicating stuff with them very effectively. And so parents will be calling, like, do we have school tomorrow? And they don't know. But CTU knows and is telling their members. So the teachers all know more answers than the principals do, which is obviously really embarrassing if you're supposed to be in charge. And then they were told in this meeting with CPS, school's going to be closed on Friday. Okay, school's closed on Friday. Great. Sounds good. And then Lightfoot gets on the dang news and tells everybody that it will be done on a school-by-school basis at principal's discretion, depending on if they have staff. So now all of these principals who had already told their students and families that we're closing look like they're the ones who closed it, as opposed and it is rare for me to feel bad for a school principal because that's my boss. I don't like my boss. Yeah. But I feel bad for them right now. Like, oh my God, like, you're just trying to like make sure that people have the information they need in a timely manner. And this lady is up here making you look like a monster. It's so unfair.
Yeah. Should we talk about what's been happening in run up to the past sort of winter break and then the stuff that's happening now, because it's very grim and bad?
Yeah. So a lot of schools have been having COVID cases. I'm not really sure what's going on with CPS's data. It kind of seems like they're not reporting it very faithfully or accurately. Like, if you look at their tracker, there'll be cases and then suddenly they'll be gone. We never really get a hard number ever. Like, we'll be like, if you have a student in your class who has been quarantined, I mean, we all know what it is, but they don't say it. They'll be like, Johnny will be out for the next X amount of time due to health reasons. Please let him join via Google Meet. And they never do. That's the other annoying thing is like the students, I think because they are either a close contact or they're sick, to them, it's like a break almost. Like they're not going to log in randomly. Like it's just I think with kids, like once it stops being consistent and it's like back and forth all the time, it becomes very difficult for them to stay motivated because they're out of their routine. Like I sometimes hate it when people say this, but it is kind of true. Kids kind of thrive on routine. So at this point now I have like a third of my class at any given moment will just not be there. And it will be a different third of the class every, it kind of like rolls through. So all of my students are at like different points in the curriculum. It's hard to like know what to teach each day because I don't know who needs what. It's hard to reach out to the kids that are at home and make sure that they get what they need because I'm so busy trying to catch these kids up and move these kids on and all that stuff, which I have seen some research. I'll see if I can find it after we're done that like pointed out that like remote learning isn't the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing that can happen is just flipping back and forth all the time and having huge numbers of kids absent from in-person learning. Mm-hmm. So we go on break and obviously we have Omicron like sweeping through the country and we all knew that there were going to be spikes. Like we knew that. And Chicago had if Illinois had some like astronomically high number of new COVID cases, like breaking records all over the place. CPS has had huge increases.
Yesterday, we had 43,984 cases in Illinois.
Wow.
That's
a lot.
Yeah. Like this is,
yeah. But yeah, so over break, like the last, like the union has been trying forever to get CPS to come in and agree to a few things. So one, in February, we had an agreement that schools would flip to remote if they reached a certain threshold. That agreement has expired and CPS has refused to come to the bargaining table and negotiate a new one. They're just like, no, we don't need it. We also have been trying to get them to do the opt-out testing and a like surveillance testing program in schools so we can kind of just have little bits of data to understand like where are these cases. CPS doesn't want to do this. They don't want a threshold for flipping to remote because then they would have to flip to remote. Yeah. And they don't want the surveillance testing because then they would have to flip to remote and they just don't want to flip to remote.
Yeah.
So finally over break, it kind of came to a head, like they were still refusing to negotiate. Like one of the union delegates in my building said something about they've been meeting, they go to these meetings, like, they're like twice a week. They try to get these meetings to happen and the mayor never comes and the CEO never comes. Like they will either send lawyers or they don't show up. And it's like, dude sounded so tired and demoralized when he said that. I felt bad for him. But yeah, so we voted that we were going to go in on Monday and Tuesday, meet with our safety committees, get a feel for what's going on in school. And then we are going to have a vote on Tuesday night as to whether or not we will do a remote work action on Wednesday. And I know a lot of people have been like trying to make it sound like this was very sudden, but it absolutely wasn't. Like we had a vote about whether or not we were interested in doing this. And then we had a vote on whether we were still interested on having a vote. And then we had the vote and the delegates voted on if they wanted to hold an official, like, should we do an action vote? We did. It was like 70% voted yes. There were some complaints that some people didn't get their ballots, but they did wait till they had enough yes votes to reach that 2/3 majority that we needed. Mm-hmm. So, CTU has every step of the way really been making sure this is actually what we want. This isn't just like unilateral things, like Lori keeps throwing that word unilateral around. It wasn't unilateral. It was like at least 2/3 of the teachers in this district said, I don't feel safe at school. There's not enough staff in the building right now to even teach. Half my kids, a third of my kids are out. This isn't working.
Yeah.
So we voted that we're going to stay home and work remotely. And then we got locked out.
Yeah, which again, like, and I want to sort of focus on this for a second, because like even a lot of people who are sympathetic to the teachers unions on Twitter, you see this a lot. They'll be like the CTU went on strike, and it's like, no, they didn't. Like
it's not a strike.
Teachers are not on strike. The teachers are attempting to work from home, and the school district will not let them.
Yeah, it's every morning. I get up at 6:30. I make my coffee and I sit down and I try to log in. And I know I won't be able to, but I do it anyway. Thankfully, I had thought to download as much of my materials as I could prior to this onto my personal device. So I am still able to like create lesson plans. Been making some very cool social studies slides. I'm so sure that my students are going to love them. Lots of cool assignments for them to do too. But yeah, like this is a lockout, and Lori keeps throwing this word like illegal work stoppage around. It's not a work stoppage. We are actively working. She has illegally, it is in our contract that she can't lock us out, and she did. So yeah. Everyone's suing each other and saying illegal, but I know which side is right. Yeah. You know, like I am not an enormous respecter of the law, but like this is one of the rare occasions where the thing that is happening is both illegal and also just wrong. The reporting on this just has not gotten the actual fundamental thing which is happening here, which is a lockout, and it's enormously frustrating in a lot of ways because, you know, and I'd say this, okay, so like local media reporting has been a lot better, but any national coverage has just, I've seen, it's just been like, yeah. And that's going to be it for part 1 of this interview. Come back tomorrow for part 2, where we will talk more about what's actually going on inside the schools and, you know, generally do the media's job for them, because Lord knows they're not actually getting it right. You can find us on Happened Here Pod on Twitter and Instagram as usual, or you can not find us. In fact, I encourage you not to find us, because good Lord, the internet is bad. Goodbye.
Hi, this is Jo Winterstein, host of the Spirit Daughter podcast, where we talk about astrology, natal charts, and how to step into your most vibrant life. And I just sat down with a Minnie Driver.
The Irish traveller said when I was 16, you're going to have a terrible time with men.
Actor, storyteller, and unapologetic Aquarian visionary. Aquarius is all about freedom-loving and different perspectives, and I find a lot of people with strong placements in Aquarius are misunderstood. A Sun and Venus in Aquarius in her 7th house spark her unconventional approach to partnership.
He really has taught me to embrace people sleeping in different rooms, on different houses, in different places, but just an embracing of the isness of it all.
If you're navigating your own transformation or just want a chart-side view into how a leading artist integrates astrology, creativity, and real life, this episode is a must listen. Listen to the Spirit Daughter podcast starting on February 24th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured 2 prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968. The murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
In 2023, a story gripped the UK, evoking horror and disbelief.
The nurse who should have been in charge of caring for tiny babies is now the most prolific child killer in modern British history.
Everyone thought they knew how it ended. A verdict, a villain, a nurse named Lucy Letby.
Lucy Letby has been found guilty.
But what if we didn't get the whole story?
The moment you look at the whole picture, the case collapses.
I'm Amanda Knox, and in the new podcast, Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby, we follow the evidence and hear from the people that lived it to ask what really happened when the world decided who Lucy Letby was.
No voicing of any skepticism or doubt.
It'll cause so much harm at every single level of the British establishment of this is wrong.
Listen to Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
China's Ministry of State Security is one of the most mysterious and powerful spy agencies in the world. But in 2017, the FBI got inside.
This is Special Agent Regal, Special Agent Bradley Hall.
This MSS officer has no idea the U.S. government is onto him. But the FBI has his chats, texts, emails, even his personal diary. Hear how they got it on the 6th Bureau podcast.
I now have several terabytes of an MSS officer, no doubt, no question, of his life. And that's a unicorn.
No one had ever seen anything like that. It was unbelievable.
This is a story of the inner workings of the MSS and how one man's ambition and mistakes opened its vault of secrets.
Listen to the 6th Bureau on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to It Could Happen Here, a podcast about things going badly and falling apart. And today we are back with part 2 of our interview with Lucy about how the Chicago public school system is falling apart under the relentless assault of cruelty, malice, and incompetence by the Chicago public schools and by the mayor, Lori Lightfoot. Enjoy. There's another thing I want to talk about a bit, which is when you've been back, when you've been sort of teaching in these really like sort of in these, like, what is it actually like to teach in these classrooms, and like, you know, like how safe actually is it?
So, I mean, I've been in a lot of different environments. When I was teaching middle schoolers, I did not feel super COVID safe. They are, I don't know if people know this about middle school age kids. They love to touch each other, especially boys. They love to like wrestle. They're always putting each other in headlocks. I'm constantly having to just be like 6 feet apart, or 3 feet, or whatever CDC has said we are now. They don't put their masks on. They put their masks in their mouths all the time, like in their mouths.
Oh no.
They're constantly finding like weird little excuses to have their mask off. Like they'll just sit there with like they're allowed to have water bottles because they can't use the water fountains. They'll just sit there with like a straw in their mouth for like extended amounts of time. And I'm like, I need you to put your mask up. Take quick sips and put your mask up. And they're like, I'm drinking. I'm like, I'm going to be drinking at the end of this day. But like, I know, take a quick sip, put your mask back up. It's really, really important for your safety. And then I have other kids who are absolutely straight up like terrified of this because like they've lost parents, they've lost grandparents. It's really scary. At the high school level, it's been a little better. High school kids are a little more rational. But I still have a few who are just like, their masks are down around their chins all the time or under their nose. And I'll like several times the class period, I'm like, okay, time for everybody to do a mask check. Make sure your mask is covering your nose, your mouth, your chin. I'll remind them, like, I have a spouse at home who has an underlying condition, and like, please don't have me bring home a deadly disease to him, because that would really not be great. Most of them are pretty good, but still they're getting sick. Like, I think we had like 40 kids out of my building on Monday, and like 28 staff members or something like that were out. And we had one sub.
Oh,
which
God.
is that's the other issue, is this isn't really a question of if we should go remote. It's a question of when will we be forced to go remote? And we can either do that now before everybody has gotten sick and wait for this to subside and get some better mitigation strategies in place, or we can do it after everybody is sick, and then we're going to be scrambling to figure it out and also be sick at the same time. I don't really see how that makes any sense.
Yeah, and that's the part of this that I've just been like, I just like, I don't get it. Like, I just like fundamentally, there's just like a mental break where it's like, I don't understand why, like Lightfoot and CPS are so insistent about not going remote. Like, I get that, like, yeah, it's hard on kids, but it's like it's you know, it is the years 2020, 2021, and 2022. Like, no matter what you do, it's hard on the kids, and it's like,
yeah,
they just.
I wonder how much of it is the remote learning that's hard on them, and how much of it is just the everything around them is crashing and falling and burning around their ears, because the messaging that they've been getting is that they don't matter. They're not important. Their safety isn't important. Their families aren't important. And some of them like want to be remote. A lot of their parents want them to be remote. They're like, it's not as good, but at least I feel safe. Some of them even thrived in remote, like actually did pretty well. And I really wish that it was just an option for those students who actually did well with it, that they could just, like, if we even ended up with like a third of our students choosing it, it would mitigate this so much, because that's a third of the people not there to spread it around. So
can I ask, like, how big your class sizes are?
Right now, the building I'm in now, I have like 25 to 30 in some. It was kind of similar at the last building. Like, they're in that range, 25, 30. I have always have like one or two that are like 20 or below, that are usually special education, like inclusion classes, where I have a co-teacher. But yeah, it's, some of them are pretty crowded, and it really varies by school. Like, there's definitely schools that have over 30 kids in a room and don't have the staff, because it's just, that's the other thing, is like, they keep talking about, I keep seeing people be like, fire all the teachers, and I'm like, good luck. Like, yes, is chronically understaffed. What are you going to do?
Yes, it's like this. Like, I think again, like, this job is really hard. Like, it's being a teacher.
Yeah, it's hard. It's exhausting, and it's very, very rewarding. Like, when it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it is miserable. So yeah, and like what it looks like, I mean, that's, it depends. It really depends on what school you're in. I think everybody can agree that it is difficult right now. So we have like air purifiers going and masks on, and I cannot understand what my kids are saying a lot of the time. Like, I do not know. And they speak so quietly. Like, I need you to shout it, say it like you mean it, whatever it is. So that, that's been challenging and frustrating and exhausting. But the worst thing ever is finding out that one of my students is sick. Like, I hate it when they hurt. Like, whenever that one of them is hurting, I feel bad. And knowing that they're home sick it's really upsetting, and just it's distressing for teachers to know that their kids are struggling in a way like that. So that's, we want them to be safe.
Like these kids, it's like, and this is true of the staff too. When you're getting sick, it's like, like, some of these people will be okay, but enormous numbers of people are, like, some of these people are going to die. A lot of these people are going to get disabled. I mean, the long-term effects of it are really bad. And we, one of, if people remember, we did an episode with one of my friends who's a nurse, and like, he had long COVID. His long COVID was like, he couldn't do more than like getting out of bed, or like just walking across a room would just put him in bed all day, because there's an enormous range of sort of like of long COVID side effects. And it's like, it's like, CPS is just, Chicago Public Schools is just in, like, they're getting people killed. And it's
that's like the question. Like, they keep talking about percentages, and I'm like, these are human beings. Every one of those numbers is a human. So when you say like only, point whatever percent are going to be long-term affected, like, okay, those are people. Can we stop like dehumanizing them with these as like data points? And as for like the issue with like how like kids are less affected by it or whatever, like the fact is, like, the more we allow this to spread around, the more variants we're going to see. And we don't know that the next variant isn't going to be the one that is really significantly harmful to children.
Yeah.
And we are basically turning our schools into these petri dishes where this thing can mutate and become stronger. And now we have vaccinated people who are in that mix, and it's becoming resistant to the vaccine. So I'm a social studies teacher, not a science teacher, but this seems like a bad move to me.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's just sort of heartbreaking in a lot of ways. I mean, it's just like they've just decided that, and again, like I don't know why Lightfoot's doing this. Like maybe it's just like she wants to shore up her base thing because she's trying to build a base among like the just like rich weird Northsiders or something. But like she's
the small business person. That's always been her people are the small business owners who don't want to close schools because then their workers won't come in. And I want to feel sorry for them, but I don't.
No,
like
fuck
I'm
them.
like fuck you, because there's also a lot of small business owners who have been very supportive of us. We had there was like a taco place offering free burritos to us. Like I really appreciate that. So, like there's enough in the community who understand that like the lives of our children are so much more important than you missing 2 weeks of profit.
Yeah.
Like we will figure that out. And if you want to bail out businesses, we can figure that out. But right now,
and also like
is saying like we refuse to do anything that might be inconvenient for business owners. Like, what is that?
Yeah, and it's like so and also but like business owners did get bailed out. Like they got 0% loans. Most of those loans got written off. And meanwhile, it's like, well, okay, what did Lightfoot do with the COVID money? She gave it to the cops. And oh hey, guess who's also just a rampant spreader of COVID? Oh yeah, it's the cops. And
guess who resisted vaccines the most? The cops.
Yeah, I mean, actually, there is one funny thing which I'm actually very excited about, which is that the cops they're having their first. So they have a new class graduating, but from the police academies, which is really bad. And there's a whole. One of the like Lightfoot's things was that there was a huge campaign against building more police academies because everyone hates the Chicago Police Department. They're awful. And
if you have $100 billion for a new police academy, why, or $100 million or whatever it was, why can't you put some better ventilation in the schools?
Yeah, well, it's because like the CPD are like basically feudal lords. They have knights. They go out. They can shoot you. Like they rob you. They just like any large number of like black kids on the streets. Like if you just have like 15 kids walking around, like 8 quad cars will show up. And Lightfoot was like, no. Her like one of her big campaign things was like, no, we're gonna make sure we build these academies. And they're having their first like round. They've been having trouble recruiting because of COVID, which is good. Yeah, and they're about to have their first police academy exam, and it's gonna be in person. And this is the only one of the few. Is this and Jair Bolsonaro where it's like I am rooting for the virus here. Like, please God save us from these cops. But yeah, I mean it's.
But they're just going to bring it home and spread it around.
Yeah.
That's the sad thing.
It's grotesque and yeah.
Yeah, it's been this thing where I'm like watching like the school system is just throwing their hands up and saying we don't care, we're done. The healthcare system is like crashing and burning all around us. Yep. Nurses are quitting. Hospitals are like, we don't have room for more patients. Like, did you have a cancer treatment scheduled? Sorry. Did you have a surgery scheduled? Sorry. I just saw somebody on Twitter saying she has a brain tumor and she's supposed to have a surgery for it and she can't now because of COVID, because they have no beds. There aren't any. And you're telling me that the right move right now is to keep the schools open, which has always been in every pandemic that we've ever had. Schools and hospitals and prisons are like the place where the whatever diseases spreads. And I know we've been claiming that like there's not been spread in schools, but we've now seen the data that there in fact is a huge amount, which I've been like screaming about this since we started, that their contact tracing models they're absurd. They are like Kafka-esque. Like basically, so we start from the assumption that everybody is 6 feet apart and wearing their mask at all times.
Yeah.
which they're not. It's not. It's not even physically possible in a lot of classrooms for that to be happening. And then 2, we start with the assumption that those things work. And so you'll get a call from a contact tracer that's like, hey, on, like last Tuesday of last week, were you within 6 feet of any of your 8th graders for more than 15 minutes? The fuck if I know. Tuesday of last week, was I near an 8th grader for 15 minutes? I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But even if I did know, what difference does it make? It is an aerosolized virus. It is in the air. And the more you sit in classrooms, the more it accumulates. Like we have seen studies about this. We've seen studies about how CO2 accumulates in the air when there's crowds. We know that stuff accumulates like that in classrooms very, very quickly. And you're going to tell me that as long as I wasn't within 15 or within 6 feet for more than 15 continuous minutes, not even 15 minutes added up throughout the day, just 15 minutes continuously, I'm not going to get a virus.
Yeah.
Are you shitting me? That makes no sense. And so then if your answer to those questions are no, because whatever, you were following the rules, then they're like, okay, you got COVID somewhere else. It wasn't at school.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Yeah, it's nonsense.
It's like I go to work and I go home. I don't do anything else, so I don't know where else it's coming from.
And I also I wanted to do a brief digression about okay, so I went to a pretty good a very well funded Chicago area sort of school, and okay, those places ventilation sucks. I went to a very well funded school. We had drowned dead rats falling out of the ceiling.
Wow.
It was incredible. It was one of my great high school memories was my principal just running full tilt, pushing a trash can because dead drowned rat falling out of the ceiling.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
But my school was wild. We had we had a chemistry teacher let a kid set off a smoke bomb that they'd made in a classroom, but it didn't work, so it just actually blew up. It was a time, but
hey, that's project-based learning, okay?
Yeah, you gotta light the school on fire. But this is these schools are not they're not safe
old.
Environments. Yeah, they're
the
really
building
old.
I worked in at the beginning of the year was 100 years old. It was built in 1920, and there was always this sewage smell around the bathroom because the pipes were messed up. It was weird, and they couldn't fix it.
I think it was the second or third time my building lit on fire. There was a whole thing of the building that was made of asbestos, and they just had left it there because it was it wasn't exposed. Yeah,
schools still have asbestos in them.
all over. I went to a good, well-funded one of these schools, right? It's I think there's two things I think it is interesting. There's when you talk to the people who want the schools to open back up. Right, they'll start talking about oh no, it's fine. Everyone wears masks. Everyone's vaccinated. Everyone's 6 feet apart. It's no, they're not. This is how it works in this imaginary play world you've created in your head.
Have you ever met a child?
Yeah, have you met your own children? What?
Oh, and that's the best. Is well, I've been having my kids wear a mask. I'm you're full of shit, okay? Because I told that kid to put their mask on 15 times yesterday, and I love them. Beautiful face. I hope they get to show it off someday, but right now, keep it covered up, please. Yeah. I'm begging you. Yeah. And I'm not that teacher who's really authoritarian. I've never been good at writing kids up and getting on them for stuff because it's just I don't know. I hate doing that. I hate being that person.
Yeah.
So it's been really, it's a struggle. It's am I going to be the person who nags them every 5 seconds, or am I going to be the teacher that they and want to learn from? This isn't sustainable. So, but you're asking the attitudes of people who want to open schools back up. And it's hard because I have talked to parents who are worried, but they are also very upset because they see that their kids are struggling.
Yeah.
And I really do feel for them on that. I really, really do. It is hard to see a kid struggle, but it is harder, I think, to see a kid sick. That is really hard. And it's just this, there are ways that we can overcome the difficulties of remote learning. Like we can find ways to give them the emotional support. We can find better socializing outlets, but I don't know how we fix, like, you've become very ill and your body isn't going to recover in the way that you thought it would. Like, I can't fix that.
So there's something I've heard from other teachers that like that preparing remote learning stuff like is harder and takes more work than.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's really rough. I don't like doing it. I want to be in the classroom, but
yeah. And I just want to like once again yell at all of the people who are like the teachers are lazy, and it's like, no, people like they're like, yeah, like you know, like you are advocating to do more work because that's the thing that will keep the kids safe. And it's
yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand like the behind the scenes, how the sausage gets made of a classroom. But I think a lot of people have this idea that like we are given curriculum and plans and materials pre-made. And sometimes that's true. It depends on your subject. Mine is social studies is not a subject where that happens very much, which is part of why I like it, because I like to be creative. So like my week looks like there are a lot of hours after school where I am sitting down, I'm looking at the standards that I need to teach, the topics that I need to teach, and I'm researching it and learning it and finding a way to teach that to kids who don't have the same like baseline knowledge that I have. And then I'm creating like an activity for them. I'm creating, I'm finding like material, like sources and like videos and stuff that they can watch that are going to help them, or things to read. I'm modifying those things for the kids who have, learning differences. I'm translating some of those things into Spanish for kids who don't really read very well in English yet. So like that's a ton of work on its own. And then when we switch to remote, we have to figure out how to do all of that on Google Classroom, where now it has to all be typed. Like, or, like how do I do a group project online? How do I let them do something creative that isn't just sitting here answering questions on a worksheet? That's hard. And we've been really good at it. And I've found all kinds of really cool tools to do that with, but it's so much work, and it's work that I'm willing to do because I care about my job. I enjoy my work. I love my students, but and I want them to be safe, but like, it is a ton of work. I'm not just sitting here eating bonbons all day or drinking cocktails.
Yeah. And I think there's like a larger sort of like Americans have this like this sexist sort of like hatred of like, or in disrespect to people who do both care work and creative work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Teaching is both. And then simultaneously there's this sort of like, there's a resentment to people who get to actually do something that helps people. And, I think like right now we're seeing just the most toxic fusion of that, which is that like, like these, like, instead of like, recognizing the enormous amount of work that's going into into teaching, like the amount of sort of like the care and love that's going into the creativity that's going into it. And just like people's willingness, like your willingness to make like enormous sacrifices to try to keep these kids safe. They're just like, no, like the teachers are lazy. They don't want to work. They're going on strike. Like, and it's, and it's like, they're doing this and it's like, like you are like, they're killing their own kids. And it's just like, it's
this weird fusion of like, we occupy the space as this like combination of like feminized care labor, emotional labor, and that sort of like intelligentsia, like professional, white collar intellectual kind of thing. And then also we're teaching a more introductory level of our subjects. So we're seen as like discount intellectuals who are also women who do care work. Yep. So it's very frustrating. And I don't think a lot of people understand the amount of skill and expertise it takes to be a teacher and be effective at it. Like, it's not just, I need to know social studies to the level that a 12th grader would know it. It's, I need to know social studies beyond that level and know how to communicate it to a high school student. And also I need to know a lot of stuff about like child development. It's really, it's something. And I find that to be fun and challenging, but I wish it was respected.
Yeah.
And, and then you're talking about like people are sacrificing their own kids. I want to point out a lot, like, I think there's a racial component to this.
Yeah.
The people who are in wealthier schools and who are mostly white know that their kids are going to be fine. Like, they are in schools that actually do have the resources to distance, that have air filters, that have good ventilation. They're vaccinated. Their kids are probably going to be fine. The kids that aren't going to be fine are low income, students of color. And it has always been this way. It's always been this way with schools. Like when schools were desegregated, we started with private school vouchers, and we started with all of these like state testing requirements and withholding funding from schools that don't meet those, test standards, and all of these like this extra oversight on teachers. Like, that stuff all comes back to white people don't want to have to worry about Black people's kids. That's it. And, they will move their kids out to the north side or to the suburbs or whatever. Notice that all of those suburb schools have flipped remote. Notice that Lori Lightfoot's kids are in a charter school that is now remote.
Well, and more than that, like Lightfoot will not put herself in a room with the same number of people that like a teacher has to go to every day. She won't do it.
And she was telling people at the press conferences they had to wear their masks, even though she wasn't wearing hers, which was very strange to me.
It's like, and that's the thing. Like, when you get to the politician level, they know it's dangerous. Like, they know it. They and you can tell if you watch what they do
right now.
Yeah, like they won't do it. But like, no, they're perfectly willing to just send you off to die, to send all these kids off to die, and it's just.
Yeah, sometimes I get kind of doomer, and I wonder if that's not the plan. Like, is it that? I mean, I don't really believe that. I think what it really is this just like malicious neglect. Like, if you're somebody who's a policymaker and someone comes to you and it's like, I need you to care about this population here that doesn't have a lot of money and needs a lot of things. And you, the policymaker, are going to be like, oh, that sounds like so much work. And then somebody else is going to come to you and be like, I need these things over here. And I do have a lot of money and I do have a lot of influence. And I'm going to make your life difficult if you don't do what I want.
Yep.
They're going to do what that other side wants. And what that other side wants right now is for kids to get back into school so that they can have free daycare so that parents can go to work. And that's it. And teachers are standing here being like, I didn't get a master's degree and do, countless hours of professional development to be a babysitter,
Yep.
And no, not to knock babysitters. I was a nanny for a long time. That is hard work, but I didn't get a master's degree to be a babysitter. I got a master's degree to be a teacher. And I'm in an environment right now where I can't really teach effectively. And all I'm doing is babysitting. They want to warehouse kids. That is what we're doing with the schools. That's why they want them open. And it's hard not to feel like they just are doing it because they hate us, even though I know it's not. It does feel that way.
I will say that like, so if you become elected as the mayor of Chicago, like your job is to break the teachers union. Like that's like the role you're auditioning for. And they have been trying to do this for literally my entire lifetime. They've been trying to do this like since before I was born. Like that's, and it honestly like wouldn't surprise me if this was another part of this was just them once again trying to break the teachers union.
Oh, absolutely.
And like, and not even just that, like, yeah, and on like not just on the sort of political level, like on the incredible cynical level of we'll just kill them. And,
well, it's a labor thing. Like, it's not just a Chicago teachers union or even a teachers union thing. It is a labor movement across the board thing that the largest unionized workforce in the country is teachers.
Yep.
And we, on top of that, are a union of workers who have the power to absolutely bring our economy to a grinding halt if we want to. We could all go on strike right now and nobody's going to do shit until we go back to work. They could, if they could try to like replace us with like people who are basically like hall monitors and give kids like canned curriculums, but they wouldn't really be learning very well and parents wouldn't be happy with it. And they wouldn't be entering the workforce with the skills they need to make money for the economy,
Yeah.
to, make money for the almighty Dow. So it has been a project for decades in this country to try to break teachers unions, because teacher unions occupy this space where they allow other unions to happen. We have, enough influence on politicians that they can't just disband the labor board and make unions illegal, which they would absolutely fucking love to do. And if they could just get rid of these damn teachers unions, maybe they could do it. So, and that's what you see with the education reform movement, where you have all these people advocating for vouchers and charter schools. And it's, they want to break labor. And I see a lot of, now I'm gonna scold some of my comrades, but I see a lot of leftists who are really skeptical of teachers and don't want to support the teachers union. And I get it. Like, there are a lot of teachers who really suck, and there's a lot of teachers who are not radical. Like, most teachers are not radical. A lot of them are pretty conservative. But at the same time, if you were to abolish schools immediately right now and break up the teachers unions and all that, you're going to end up with rich people go to school, poor people don't. If you're poor, your kid goes to work. Probably won't be in a coal mine, but they'll probably be like soldering my computer chips or coding or something for like pennies an hour. And I don't want that world. And if you actually care about labor, then you need to support teachers unions, because the public schools are central to all of these communities that we want to be reaching. And the unions are the only thing making sure that they stay public.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's like, and I was like, again, like two Ionicus comrades who are anti-school. It's like, okay.
I hate school. I'm for it. Deschooling is great, but we need to do other things first.
Yeah, you have to, and like, again, like you need to like support the workers, not the institution.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's like saying I'm a vegan, so I'm going to go after McDonald's employees.
Yeah, and I say this so I my high school was like, all the schools went to like incredibly conservative, but everyone was still in the union. That was like the one thing that was like, well, okay, there were two countervailing forces. One was that the Christians didn't seem to understand what liberation theology was, so occasionally they'd accidentally hire a leftist because they were like, "Oh, you're Christian, you're fine, you're from Latin America. Yeah, we're not going to question you further." The second thing was that even everyone was in the union, and that was literally those are the only two left wing vaguely things.
I've gotten into so many teaching spaces by talking about how I like critical pedagogy, and they don't understand that Freire was a communist.
Yeah.
Or being like, oh, I'm really, really, really into Chicago history. I especially love the history of like labor in Chicago, because it's huge. People here care about it, and they don't get that like I'm an anarchist.
Yeah.
But and a lot of the like sort of like education reform language, I think it's very funny. It is 100% just lifted from radical like sociologists and anthropologists and educators who are trying to find ways to dismantle like authoritarian structures in schools. And so they'll come up with these like, like restorative practices and all this stuff. And then they kind of they make their way up to the ivory tower and then get repackaged in this, it's like, I don't know, it's like a machine or something that like sucks up radical ideas, brings them up to the academy, repackages them to make them nice for politicians, and then spits them back out into policy. And it is exhausting, and I hate it. It makes me so mad. I'll never forgive people for what they did to the term restorative justice.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you want to make sure that people like understand about what's happening in the schools right now?
I guess just the biggest thing is I want people to understand that like this is a question of when and under what conditions are we going to be forced into a remote learning situation. This isn't like we want remote learning because we like it because it's fun. It's because it's going to happen if you like it or not. The schools are going to close if you like it or not, because unless you're okay with just like people are going to get sick and die or going to work sick, which I think most of us agree that's insane.
Yeah.
We're going to be in a situation where we don't have enough staff to keep buildings open. So either we can try and mitigate that now and keep that from happening, or we can just throw our hands up and say, fine, let the schools collapse. I don't want the schools to collapse.
Yeah.
So if we could just go remote for 2 weeks and get some good testing in and have a vaccine requirement. And personally, I would like to advocate for remote as an option for parents who want it. I don't think that's on the table right now, but I think more parents out there should be demanding it. And I also would like to say to parents, you have a lot of power that you don't understand. The school districts listen to the parents so much more than the teachers. One parent's voice is worth like 10 teacher voices. So if you see something going on in your schools that you're not comfortable with, if you have questions, contact your principals, contact the district, talk to people, talk to the other parents that you know, organize yourselves. If we had, strong parent organizations on our side, we would be absolutely unstoppable, and we could have the school system that we want and that our kids deserve.
Yeah, and I think the right figured this out a long time ago, that you can
absolutely. Look at what they're doing to the school board meetings with CRT.
Yeah,
we could have that for people who are actually good people who care. There's no reason that all of the other parents couldn't be going and saying, I want my kids to learn about race, and I want them to be wearing masks, and I want everybody to be vaccinated.
Yeah, so I think that's a good note to end on. We can make this better. We just have to, work together and do it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you want to plug? Do you have a way to support the teachers? Or
I think I'll send you a flyer that we have. It has some information for contacting aldermen, getting COVID tests, and a petition to sign. If you could post that, I would really appreciate that.
We can definitely do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, good talking to you.
Hi, this is Jill Winterstein, host of the Spirit Daughter podcast, where we talk about astrology, natal charts, and how to step into your most vibrant life. And I just sat down with a Minnie Driver.
The Irish traveler said when I was 16, you're going to have a terrible time with men.
Actor, storyteller, and unapologetic Aquarian visionary. Aquarius is all about freedom loving and different perspectives. And I find a lot of people with strong placements in Aquarius are misunderstood. A Sun and Venus in Aquarius in her 7th house spark her unconventional approach to partnership.
He really has taught me to embrace people sleeping in different rooms, on different houses, in different places, but just an embracing of the isness of it all.
If you're navigating your own transformation or just want a chart side view into how a leading artist integrates astrology, creativity, and real life, this episode is a must listen. Listen to the Spirit Daughter podcast starting on February 24th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
In 2023, a story gripped the UK, evoking horror and disbelief.
The nurse who should have been in charge of caring for tiny babies is now the most prolific child killer in modern British history.
Everyone thought they knew how it ended. A verdict, a villain, a nurse named Lucy Letby.
Lucy Letby has been found guilty.
But what if we didn't get the whole story?
The moment you look at the whole picture, the case collapses.
I'm Amanda Knox, and in the new podcast, Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby, we follow the evidence and hear from the people that lived it to ask what really happened when the world decided who Lucy Letby was.
No voicing of any skepticism or doubt.
It'll cause so much harm at every single level of the British establishment of this is wrong.
Listen to Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
China's Ministry of State Security is one of the most mysterious and powerful spy agencies in the world. But in 2017, the FBI got inside.
This is Special Agent Regal, Special Agent Bradley Hall.
This MSS officer has no idea the U.S. government is onto him. But the FBI has his chats, texts, emails, even his personal diary. Hear how they got it on the 6th Bureau podcast.
I now have several terabytes of an MSS officer, no doubt, no question, of his life. And that's a unicorn.
No one had ever seen anything like that. It was unbelievable.
This is a story of the inner workings of the MSS and how one man's ambition and mistakes opened its vault of secrets.
Listen to the 6th Bureau on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Robert, do you want to open us up with something? I don't know.
Nope. The opening is what you just did.
Okay, welcome.
We're already opened.
Welcome to It Could Happen Here, the podcast about how things do be crumbling sometimes,
including our ability to introduce the podcast that pays our salaries.
It's actually a very meta art piece about the We started off very polished and slowly.
This is a commentary on I don't know, something.
It's called
Figure it out. Figure out what it's a commentary on it.
It's called metamodernism. It's it's postmodern. Anyway, we're going to be talking about disinformation and various bullshit today. So, among the many disinformation vectors online, Joe Rogan's podcast is obviously one of like the largest single vectors.
I mean, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I don't think there's a cable news station as influential as Joe Rogan. You know, and you could make commentary on like, oh, maybe they have a larger viewership, but in terms of like their actual ability to influence large numbers of people, there's certainly no single cable news host that comes close to Joe. And I would argue probably no network that does. He's extremely influential by virtue of the fact that he's a meathead people seem to find friendly and engaging. And he is very charismatic. He's good at what he does.
He's good at talking. Yeah. So multiple times during the past 3 weeks, Rogan has brought on two separate quote-unquote doctors whom have started to peddle something called mass formation psychosis, which is kind of a new vector in the anti-vax kind of argument and like headspace. So for the It Could Happen Here portion of the episode, this one's pretty simple. Could mass formation psychosis happen here?
No way. Not this time. We created it. Not this time. No, not this time. It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up. We made this one up. It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication.
Nope. Not really. It's fiction.
Has it ever happened anywhere?
Total.
I might also argue no.
Nope. Fiction.
We've done it. We've solved the podcast.
Total fabrication.
This is not a thing.
Total fabrication. Made up tale. So yeah, but whenever these like kook doctors bring up mass formation psychosis, you can actually kind of watch them get close to understanding something real, but then they veer off into reactionary nonsense.
Like most powerful nonsense, there is an element of truth that it is spinning off of, you know?
Yeah. So let's start off with some of the more kind of deranged examples, and then eventually providing at least some background onto the whole mass formation psychosis idea, and then we'll kind of discuss some of the more slightly interesting aspects of this argument that Rogan seems fond of pushing right now. So the first guy I want to talk about is Dr. Peter McCullough, which is not the guy that was trending on Twitter last week or whatever. This is someone else that Rogan brought on a few weeks previously who actually started talking about this first.
Yeah.
So background on McCullough. by most accounts, he was like a top cardiologist for many years. No, he shares a similar story to other doctors who've become kind of COVID conspiracy celebrities. Former friends and coworkers say he was a pretty reasonable guy and a good doctor, and then COVID
then he
hit.
realized he could be worth millions of dollars.
Yeah, COVID hit, and he started to kind of go off the rails. And he initially began developing conspiracy theories, in particular around hydroxychloroquine. And McCullough was also in the news earlier this year in 2021, due to a legal dispute with his former employer, Baylor University Health. So, according to a lawsuit, for nearly 6 months after McCullough's employment had ended, he continued to use his professional titles, such as the Vice Chief of Internal Medicine at Baylor University, and misrepresented himself as a Baylor employee dozens, if not hundreds of times in media interviews in which he spread disinformation about the pandemic. So, the type of misinformation that he talks about, pretty basic stuff. Vaccines are neither safe nor effective. He was a very early hydroxychloroquine proponent. He claims that there's no asymptomatic COVID transmission at all, even if you're not vaccinated. And he claims that you cannot get COVID twice. Once you have it once, the post-infection natural immunity is 100% protective against all future COVID disease, which of course is not.
Nothing works that way.
All of the things
no
we
illness
just
works that way.
Yeah, no, everything I just said is not true.
All of it can individually be disproved by the existence of Jair Bolsonaro. He defeats every single one of these claims.
As you say that, Chris, I'm looking over at my digital picture frame that is just loaded with like a dozen photos of Jair Bolsonaro in the hospital dying.
Yeah. So
I recommend everyone do that. It improves every morning. As soon as I walk up to my recording studio, I see Jair Bolsonaro getting shit sucked out of his nose from a tube, and I just feel ready to take on the day. It beats coffee.
Wow, that's strong words. The other big thing, and this is how we're going to get into the mass psychosis bullshit, is that McCullough also asserts that 50,000 Americans have died from the vaccine shots. This is not true. Looking at like deaths possibly associated with it, it is like maybe 1,000 or 2,000, which sucks. But like that's the highest amount, because again, it's not even, a lot of these things are not necessarily directly causal. So it's hard to figure out what is what. But if there is a number, it's around the 2,000 range, not 50,000. And McCullough thinks that, or at least promotes the idea that like the vaccine is a conspiracy theory to suppress hydroxychloroquine and therapeutic treatment for COVID. And this conspiracy is organized at every level, through different regions, corporations, big pharma, Hollywood, and this is the mass formation psychosis, is that we've believed that both COVID is like a big problem and that the vaccine is the solution. So I'm gonna play a clip. Hopefully you guys can hear this of McCullough talking about mass formation psychosis.
Dope.
We've seen mass psychoses in history before. The horrific group suicides that have happened with religious cults. We knew in Nazi Germany, where people, in a sense, offered their children up to eugenics programs in a progressive mass psychosis, and they themselves walked into gas chambers and were gassed to death. They didn't go kicking and screaming. That's a mass psychosis. So what Desmond says is there must be 4 conditions met for a mass psychosis. The first is the population must be isolated. People must be isolated for a prolonged period of time. Number 2, we must have things taken away from us that we previously enjoyed. Number 3, there must be constant free-floating anxiety. Anxiety of more viruses, more disability, more death, more anxiety. Okay? And then the last one is the capper. Number 4 is there must be a single solution offered by an entity in authority. The vaccine. The only solution to the pandemic is the vaccine. We're in a mass psychosis. And what Desmond says is, with the vaccine, there is no limit to the absurdity that we will see. No limit to the absurdity. So this idea of, here, take a vaccine. Take any vaccine. That's absurd. Vaccines are different. There must be a winner. There must be a loser. There must be somebody. Yeah. Why would it be any vaccine?
It's the same with the mask. Wear a mask. Doesn't matter what kind of mask. Just put it over your face.
The absurdity. The absurdity of, well, I've already had COVID. The CDC says you can't get COVID again.
All right.
Nope. Okay. So
I think,
listeners at home should know, so that you understand what this video is, that the entire time he's talking, there is what appears to be the eviscerated corpse of a black woman lying underneath him. Like, it's
horrifying.
It's
like
very unsettling.
Like meat on top.
Sophie,
I think it's like one of the dolls that medical students learn how to do autopsies on. It's not a real person, but it does look like the corpse of an eviscerated woman as he's just chatting.
But the face really does look like a person.
It took me I thought it was like I couldn't figure out what was going on for like
yeah.
ages.
I mean,
it looks like a real person.
The cadaver dolls that they have for training are quite good. I kind of want to get one for the next time I'm in Texas and want to use an HOV lane, but that's the story for another day.
So yeah, that's pretty dumb, especially the notion that people were hypnotized into peacefully walking into gas chambers.
I just need to state, like, that's that. Not only is that like that is objectively untrue to the extent that I could provide anyone interested with thousands of pages of reading from people who survived concentration camps about how they worked and why people walked into them, and a lot of it just boils down to the fact that they were making a very rational choice, which was, I have no options here. I cannot get out of this, but I can at least make sure that my children are not panicking in the last seconds before we're killed. And a lot of the people, because a lot of the actual like grunt work of loading humans into the gas chambers was done by other inmates who were also not going through psychosis. They were given a chance to survive longer by helping to operate the camps. And those people, you can read, some of them did survive, and some of them wrote about their experiences, which is some of the most harrowing shit like imaginable for a human being to possibly go through. It is all tremendously well documented, and the most offensive thing I can imagine is saying that these people were somehow is saying, number one, it's incredibly offensive to say that they were going through some sort of psychosis and that's why they walked into the chambers, and not this was the best option available to them given what was going on and what like the situation they had been forced into. They did not have other options. It was that or get machine gunned to death. And maybe you think you would choose a different option. But if you're critiquing them or trying to claim that like the only reason they would do that, what they did was that they had lost their minds, I will hit you in the face with a brick. Fuck you. Like that's my answer to that. Actually, if you are someone who is interested academically in why people did some of the things that they did at the death camps, and like how that actually functioned psychologically, it's like a short book. It's This Way for the Gas, Ladies and Gentlemen. And it is a quasi-fictionalized book by a guy named Tadeusz Borowski, who was a survivor of the death camp. So it's based on his experiences at Auschwitz and Dachau. And he describes the way in which the world of the camps worked and the psychology of the camps worked. And he's not a piece of shit grifter asshole. He's a guy who lived through all of this. So if you actually care about any of this, just read that. Everything this guy says is wrong, and if I had a chance to, I would hit him in the face with a brick. Please continue, Garrison.
Yeah, it really sucks because it's not just a combination of medical misinformation, but also just the most shit sociology. And it creates this a really disgusting package of really bad sociology, medical misinformation, and like, yeah, he's doing this to like because he can make a profit off of it. So he's saying these things. So I know he mentioned a name, Desmond. Desmond's the guy who kind of coined this term. We'll talk about more about him at the end. But for now, let's go on an ad break, and we'll be back to talk about Dr. Robert Malone, the other guy who's been pushing this nonsense. So here's
someone
else
who I probably will want to hit with a brick.
Even more so, honestly. Yeah.
Good.
And we're back talking now about mass formation psychosis and the dumb people who are, well, or smart people who are using
I don't think they're dumb. I think they're evil. Yeah.
They're evil, not dumb. So after McCall went on Rogan's show, it got that show got pretty popular. One big right-wing kind of Trumpist media personality named Melissa Tate was permanently banned from Twitter after posting about the podcast and making the following post to her 500,000 followers. Global bombshell! Dr. Peter McCall on the Joe Rogan Show says Moderna made the COVID vaccine long before COVID actually hit, and that the pandemic was a premeditated and concerted scheme by government and medical entities to then force vaccinations as the solution. So that's the type of narrative that they're trying to foster
because
with this
the pandemic
psychosis.
has been so good for Biden's approval ratings. It's really working out great for everybody.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson also promoted the interview, saying Rogan asks excellent questions and McCall provides the answers. So so apparently the mass formation psychosis doctor guy was enough of a hit that Rogan's team decided to very soon after bring on another lying conspiracy doctor, Dr. Robert Malone. So during the last week of 2021, Rogan invited Malone onto his show. Malone's a virologist and a immunization doctor who claims credit for inventing the mRNA vaccine in a pair of papers from the late 80s.
Spoilers, he did not. There was work on the vaccine before him, and work continued after him. Yeah.
Yeah. In 89, he published a paper kind of positing maybe mRNA can be binded with other kind of proteins. He did not really do any work on it besides just saying, I wonder if this could maybe happen. And then
the knowledge
he
fight
decided,
guys dig into this dude a bit, but there were people asking similar questions and publishing papers
at the same time.
Similar questions, and before in like
and
78.
before, yeah. So Malone actually thought this was too hard and abandoned this project very soon, and then went to work for like the military to develop other random he thought the RNA vaccines were too hard, so he went on to develop more stuff around DNA vaccines, and has been working with like the military and various like big pharma companies on vaccines for a while. More accurately, Dr. Kariko and Drew Weissman are two doctors that are widely agreed and acknowledged to have put the most development work and actual actually doing the science to make mRNA vaccines a thing. And of course, the development of them was due to, work of hundreds of researchers. So it's not, one person does not invent something like this.
No.
It's a group of a lot of people. But
it makes it for an easy title for your viral video.
Yes. And in fact, actually, logically, that's a journalist website, reached out to Malone and for an article, and Malone replied back stating that he did not actually literally invent the vaccine, but instead developed a vaccine technology platform. He presented logically copies with 9 patents, none of which are the patents for functioning mRNA vaccines.
Of course not.
Because he didn't do it.
But he claims to have patented mRNA technology. I mean, he did. It's technology that doesn't work, and never has, and never has worked, and the patents are expired. Anyway,
I need to patent some shit. That just sounds like a real easy way to make a good grift.
Yeah. So as we've seen with my, but because Malone has crafted this narrative that I'm the inventor of this thing, just like we've seen with my COVID grifting doctors episode of Behind the Bastards, just a little shred of medical authority can be morphed and transformed with propaganda into something much greater than what it is. Whether that be claiming to be the inventor of the mRNA or claiming to be the former head scientist at Pfizer. Neither of those have to actually be true to work, because propaganda makes it true via repetition. So
it's the kind of thing where dunking on these guys. It's important here to correct the record. It doesn't do anything.
No,
the fact that they're
absolutely
lying
not.
and nothing that they say is true does not matter when it comes to them having an influence in the community they have. If you get on Rogan, it doesn't you've already done the thing that you need to do to be able to profit from this. It doesn't matter that you're lying.
A few months ago, Malone went on to Steve Bannon's show to talk about how the vaccines make COVID worse actually. And this is a quote from Steve Bannon. You're hearing it from the individual who invented the mRNA vaccine, and has dedicated his life to vaccines. He's the opposite of an anti-vaxxer, right? So it's that type of narrative that gets made. So yeah. Starting around June of 2021, Malone began to make the rounds. Bannon, Tucker, Glenn Beck. and now Joe Rogan. So, starting in June, he had like less than 5,000 Twitter followers. And just before his suspension at the end of December for spreading misinformation, he had like over 500,000. So yeah. So right after his Twitter suspension for lying about COVID and causing misinformation to run rampant around a health issue, that's when Rogan invited him on. It was right after he got suspended from Twitter. And there's been one particular clip from the interview that has really caught like the far right's attention. The tweet that it's connected to is captioned, "On Joe Rogan, Dr. Robert Malone suggests we are living through a mass formation psychosis. He explains how and why this could happen and its effects. He draws an analogy to the 1920s and 30s Germany. They had a highly educated population, and they went barking mad."
They did not. They made a series of logical... The Nazis did not go mad. They were not crazy. They were not out of their mind. They were a large part of what they were doing was saying things that they knew were nonsense and lies in order to get elected because it riled people up. And then a large chunk of their policy was figuring out, well, if this is the shit that we've been saying, how do we translate that into policy? Again, reams have been written on this by credible researchers. The people who ran the camps were not insane, although they were often deeply depressed and suicidal because it's not good to run a death camp. They were all making rational decisions, and the people who let it happen were letting it happen because it was dangerous and scary to interfere in any way. They were all making rational decisions. There was no insanity responsible for the Holocaust.
Which is worse. Like,
yeah.
and
Much
that's
worse.
The other thing. Yeah. What they're doing is like they're trying to give people a way out, right? Like this is sort of like, oh, it's like, well, the Nazis went insane. All the people who followed them went insane. It's like, no, they don't. You don't get that way out. Like they chose to do this.
Yeah, the scariest and most meaningful lesson to take from the Holocaust is that you yourself could be a part of a Holocaust even if you didn't support the killing, because it's extremely easy to not get involved and stop something like that once it reaches a certain level. And it's easy for the kind of political organizations that can make things like that possible to reach a point where they can carry that sort of shit out, because again, it's scary to fucking fight them.
The clip's like a minute long, and I think it's worth watching to see both in the context of when Rogan decides to interject and when he decides not to.
Basically, European intellectual inquiry into what the heck happened in Germany.
I hate this guy already.
In the 20s and 30s. Very intelligent, highly educated population, and they went barking mad. And how did that happen? The answer is mass formation psychosis. When you have a society that has become decoupled from each other and has free-floating anxiety and a sense that things don't make sense, we can't understand it, and then their attention gets focused by a leader or a series of events on one small point, just like hypnosis, they literally become hypnotized and can be led anywhere. And one of the aspects of that phenomena is the people that they identify as their leaders, the ones typically that come in and say, you have this pain and I can solve it for you, I and I alone. Okay, can fix this problem for you. Okay, then they will follow that person through. It doesn't matter whether they lie to him or whatever. The data are irrelevant. And furthermore, anybody who questions that narrative is to be immediately attacked. They are the other. This is central to mass formation psychosis. And this is what has happened. We had all those conditions. If you remember back before 2019, everybody was complaining, the world doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. And we're all isolated from each other. We're all on our little tools. We're not connected socially anymore, except through social media. And then this thing happened and everybody focused on it. That is how mass formation psychosis happens. And that is what's happened here.
Horrible.
Completely wrong. In every single way. The Germans were not confused because nothing made sense. They were angry because of the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. They were also angry because of what they saw as, and because of a myth that had grown up about why they had lost the First World War, which was spread by people who were the equivalent in that time of Joe Rogan. They were scared of the left, of communism, of disorder, of riots in the streets. And when Hitler took power, most Germans did not like him. They did not blindly follow him. He gradually gained the support of the vast majority of Germany through a number of different, very logical things. One thing that he did that got him a lot of support was he took businesses and homes and money from Jewish people and from members of other groups that the Nazis were targeting, and he gave it to Aryans. There was a direct financial interest for a lot of people who got in line behind the Nazis, and he established a series of programs like the Strength Through Joy program that really did benefit in a way that they had not known before the German working class. And a lot of this was, again, subsidized through the appropriations of things that had been owned by people that the Nazis were targeting. People fell in line behind Hitler for logical reasons. He did not reach the highest point of his support from the German populace until the taking of Paris, which obviously that was something that a lot of Germans supported. They had spent 4 years failing to take the city in World War I. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, it's all nonsense. It's all lies.
I think a reason why this is latching on so much to people on the right, like people on the right who don't consider themselves fascists, who think, who would say Nazis are bad, right? They still are latching onto this because it provides a way for them to not understand how fascism actually works, right? It provides an alternative explanation that makes them not have to actually think about what fascism is. And that's why they're latching onto it. And it also is already a part of the conspiracies they have around vaccines and power structures. So because it's the conspiratorial basis instead of like thinking about power structures from like an anarchist or like hierarchy lens, it reinforces the worldviews they have and makes them not have to interrogate the ones that they don't want to. It sucks. Malone's Substack goes into more of this, and it's pretty bad. There's a few quotes that I think really kind of tie this together, and then he has some horrible statistics. He says, as many of you know, I've spent time researching and speaking about mass psychosis theory. Most of what I've learned has come from Dr. Desmond. Dr. Desmond is like the guy who coined this term. And Malone writes, Desmond realized that this form of mass hypnosis, the madness of crowds, can account for the strange phenomenon of about 20 to 30% of the population in the Western world becoming entrenched with the noble lies and dominant narrative concerning the safety and effectiveness of the genetic vaccines, and both propagated and enforced by politicians, science bureaucrats, pharmaceutical companies, and legacy media. Great. Of course, the obvious examples of mass formation is Germany in the 30s and 40s. How could the German people, who were highly educated, very liberal in the classic sense, Western-thinking people, how could they go crazy and do what they did to the Jews? How could this happen? To a civilized people, a leader of a mass formation movement will use the platform to continue to pump the group with new information to focus on. In the case of COVID-19, I like to use the term fear porn. Leaders through mainstream media and government channels continuously feed the beast with more messaging that further hypnotize their adherents. Studies suggest that mass formation follows a general distribution. 30% of people are brainwashed and hypnotized, fully indoctrinated in the group narrative. 40% in the middle are persuaded and may follow if no worthy alternatives perceived, and 30% will fight the narrative. Those who rebel and fight against the narrative become the enemy of the brainwashed and the primary target of aggression. So that's the way he thinks. That is how, which is really, it's really something. Like in terms of how he's building a narrative in his head, and specifically building a narrative for other people's heads to view, why do I feel distrustful of certain pieces of power but love other pieces of power?
Yeah, and it's, again, like this idea that, like, well, Germany was liberal. It's like Germany had an enormous right-wing movement. Like, it was a hugely conservative country in a lot of ways. It also had a lot of leftist organizing and a lot of leftists in it, especially after World War I. But like the Freikorps and shit, there were these massive, million-strong right-wing armed street movements that existed for the entirety of the Weimar Republic. Like, it's, again, everything he says is wrong.
Yeah, and again, it's like, the notion that like 30% are fully brainwashed, 40% are in the middle and persuadable, and 30% fight the narrative. It's like these people who are these specifically conservatives who are obsessed about thinking, well, like, I would have fought the Nazis, and because they don't understand how fascism works and power dynamics, they don't understand how they're actually getting pulled into the same thing, but they still view themselves as the rebel, right? They're so
Everybody
focused.
wants to be the rebel in America.
Right, yeah, like they're so
that was a
focused on
Nazis
being
thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. So like they're so focused on being the rebel and like we're rebelling against the vaccine. That is just like rebelling against the Nazis, and you're like, what?
Also, I just want to say about those numbers. If
they're completely made up.
Yeah. When people start throwing even number statistics at you like that, it's because they're lying.
Yeah,
it's because they're full of shit. Yeah.
30, 40, 30? Absolutely not. You're
that
not
doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's complete nonsense. For one, it's horseshit.
So again, because now the other thing that happened around this interview, because it did gain a lot of traction among the right, is that whenever these things gain traction, they also develop conspiracy theories that people are trying to suppress it. They're like, look at the Google algorithm when you type in certain keywords. Like I know the day this was trending, it was like if you Google Dr. Malone, the interview is only like the 6th result. The first one is this YouTube video debunking it, and like I did this, and like no, the first result was the obviously viral video of him saying the thing. Like they can take one screenshot that maybe someone made, or maybe because of one person's computer algorithm, that's what gave them, and use this as like evidence that this is the entire system of the internet suppressing the thing. I'm like, no, the internet wants things to go viral. Now there's certain things where they like try to shut down the spread of dangerous stuff, but this got very viral. This was not contained in any way, but because of this notion, like they're trying to hide it, it plays into them thinking that they are the rebels or something.
No, and there's also a very practical reason why the people who particularly know that they're lying do this, and it's because all of their success is based on a foundation of the way in which YouTube and Facebook and Twitter algorithmically amplified them and their predecessors. And they know that creating controversy over the fact that they're being suppressed leads to more content that basically algorithmically spreads their stuff more, because more people are talking about it, because other people's channels start debating it, because idiots on the left are like, well, we should at least have them on and platform them because we're anti-censorship too, so let's debate them. And like all of this stupid shit feeds into spreading their stuff. It's a very intelligent strategy. I hate it.
But just in terms of how ridiculous it is, I know a few days ago, a congressman, Troy Nehls, said that I submitted the transcript from the Joe Rogan Experience podcast episode with Dr. Malone to the congressional record. Big tech wants to restrict your access to information, but they cannot censor the congressional record. Nonsense.
Big tech is the entire reason why you know about these people.
Yep. Yeah, entirely. So
if it were not for big tech, Joe Rogan would be narrating videos of robots fighting.
So Jack Sobiek got real into this because he loves anything that goes viral.
If it weren't for big tech, Jack Posobiec would have died in a ditch of an OxyContin overdose.
So he got real into it. He changed his Twitter name to Jack Mass Formation Psychosabec or some bullshit like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
stupid. And it was tweeting about it nonstop for a week. And like a kid learning about a new topic because of synchronicity, he's gonna like project it onto everything he sees now. He's like this new all-encompassing topic that makes you avoid what fascism actually is, and then point out at the things you don't like. So of course he's gonna apply it to everything. He made a tweet right before January 6th, as the anniversary of the Capitol attempted coup thing. Regime media has launched a propaganda push against Ashley Babbitt today to psychologically prep their flock for the upcoming mass formation event planned for January 6th this week. This is called priming, and it's a textbook mass formation theory tactic. Wait till you see what comes next.
And it is the 6th today. Has anything happened?
You know what happened?
Not a goddamn thing.
They got fucking Lin-Manuel Miranda to sing a song. That's
the
what
Democrats
they did.
got Lin-Manuel Miranda to sing a song.
Wait. Did you see that wasn't... He might have said something in the beginning that was new, but the performance has been played before on other things.
Well, and I am... You know what? If we're trying to reach across the aisle, I am willing to admit that the popularity of Lin-Manuel Miranda might be a mass formation psychosis.
Absolutely, yes.
I don't mean to insult you if you like his music.
The popularity of Hamilton is a mass formation psychosis. Absolutely.
We're just being assholes, but like seriously, like it again. But it doesn't. It does.
What the fuck is what we're saying?
When it comes to again, like the fact that he said there's gonna be this whatever mass formation psychosis event on the anniversary of January 6th, and it's going to be huge. Watch for it, and nothing happens. Doesn't matter. Never matters. Will never matter. Because again, like it's. I think one of the issues that we have here is the degree to which brainwashing and hypnosis and stuff are talked about within kind of discussions of a cultic milieu when they're not really a factor. Not a factor in cults. Not
nearly as much as you think. Yeah.
And not in the way that you think. There's things that like you could call brainwashing, but the and you could even maybe call hypnosis, although that's a lot murkier.
And that is a very technical thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but the what actually like the stuff that's actually happening is, again, it's always much more logical and rational if you can just inhabit the mental space of the people who are in those communities because of what they're primed to believe first, and because of what is happening socially, because of the degree to which they isolate themselves from people who are outside of that bubble. Like, that's why it's so hard to get them out. It's not that like magically their brains have been taken over. It's that they have pretty methodically been put into a position where rejecting what is being told to them within this context is immensely more painful than just continuing to believe things that are not true. And there are more consequences for it. You know, you lose a support network. You lose a great deal of your own opinion of yourself and your self-worth if you start to reject this stuff. And once you can trap people in that, it's the same way that like Scientology works. Once you can trap people in that, the evidence of their eyes and the fact that like they're obviously being lied to and the things that they're being told about don't come to pass. It's the reason why you have a bunch of apocalyptic cults who say the world's going to end on this day and time. That day and time comes, the world doesn't end, and the cult goes on, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. This whole thing was started by this professor of clinical psychology at a university in Belgium, Matthias Desmet. He seems to have a pretty bad understanding of history and actual like power structures, and does not know the least bit about fascism, and has tried to craft this thing to fill in the gaps in his own knowledge and applies it to everything. And I've read some of his stuff. It's nonsense. Just like the doctors who talked about it, they're like, yeah, he's using this also as a way to explain how COVID's not real and how the vaccine is a ploy to do X bad thing. It's all ridiculous. It's irresponsible. And they're using it as a tactic, and hopefully it's just going to blow over, but I'm sure it'll pop up every once in a while again, just like it popped up, a few weeks ago. But that's really all I want to get into it. I could say more, but I think we have said enough.
I think we've said enough. All right. Well, fuck it.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I've got. Read This Way for the Gas, ladies and gentlemen, by Thaddeus Borowski. It will have a major impact on the way you see the entire world if you actually read it. There's some incredible pieces in there. One of the things that Thaddeus points out is that like people only ever have like one kind of language for talking about like the things that they feel, whether it's something they kind of vaguely care about or something they care about enough to murder over. And so when people engage in acts of like horrific violence on a mass scale, they often do it looking and acting like they would if they were irritated at somebody in traffic. And it's the most unsettling thing about being the victim of a genocide, that you don't see the kind of hate and the kind of rage and the kind of like what you would expect someone would need to be amped up to. It's more of like, you see more like kind of boredom and irritation and all that stuff. Like it's not. Anyway, read Thaddeus Borowski. I desperately wish Joe Rogan would just sit and narrate this book on his show, because it would do actually a service to the world. Anyway, that's the episode.
Hi, this is Jo Winterstein, host of the Spirit Daughter podcast, where we talk about astrology, natal charts, and how to step into your most vibrant life. And I just sat down with a Minnie Driver.
The Irish traveller said when I was 16, you're going to have a terrible time with men.
actor, storyteller, and unapologetic Aquarian visionary. Aquarius is all about freedom-loving and different perspectives, and I find a lot of people with strong placements in Aquarius are misunderstood. A Sun and Venus in Aquarius in her 7th house spark her unconventional approach to partnership.
He really has taught me to embrace people sleeping in different rooms, on different houses, in different places, but just an embracing of the isness of it all.
If you're navigating your own transformation or just want a chart-side view into how a leading artist integrates astrology, creativity, and real life, this episode is a must listen. Listen to the Spirit Daughter podcast starting on February 24th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
China's Ministry of State Security is one of the most mysterious and powerful spy agencies in the world. But in 2017, the FBI got inside.
This is Special Agent Regal, Special Agent Bradley Hall.
This MSS officer has no idea the U.S. government is onto him. But the FBI has his chats, texts, emails, even his personal diary. Hear how they got it on the 6th Bureau podcast.
I now have several terabytes of an MSS officer, no doubt, no question, of his life. And that's a unicorn.
No one had ever seen anything like that. It was unbelievable.
This is a story of the inner workings of the MSS and how one man's ambition and mistakes opened its vault of secrets.
Listen to the 6th Bureau on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
In 2023, a story gripped the UK, evoking horror and disbelief.
The nurse who should have been in charge of caring for tiny babies is now the most prolific child killer in modern British history.
Everyone thought they knew how it ended. A verdict, a villain, a nurse named Lucy Letby.
Lucy Letby has been found guilty.
But what if we didn't get the whole story?
The moment you look at the whole picture, the case collapses.
I'm Amanda Knox, and in the new podcast, Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby, we follow the evidence and hear from the people that lived it to ask what really happened when the world decided who Lucy Letby was.
No voicing of any skepticism or doubt.
It'll cause so much harm at every single level of the British establishment of this is wrong.
Listen to Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Could it happen here? It may be. Robert Evans, host of this podcast, to introduce today's episode, which is not my episode. It's Andrew's episode. So,
hello.
How are you doing, Andrew? How do you feel about that introduction?
I'm good. I think it's could use some work, but we'll workshop it.
Yeah, we never workshop anything. We just roll right ahead. So
abolish work and all that.
Abolish introductions. Start in the middle. Why don't we just do that now?
In media res podcast.
Yeah, we'll make every podcast like Finnegan's Wake, where the opening of the podcast is like halfway through a paragraph that the end of the paragraphs or the end of the episode starts. Everything will be a circle. Let's just, Sophie, I think that's the new plan.
Okay.
Andrew,
Excellent.
what do you got for us today?
Right. So today I want to talk about bioregions and bioregionalism. It's philosophy slash movement slash way of viewing things. It's a lot. So today we'll be exploring what it is, where it came from, and the role I see it playing in our strides towards anarchy. But first, of course, we should really get some context. Bioregionalism. Have any of you heard of it, by the way?
I have heard the
I've
term
heard of
in relation.
bioregions. Yeah.
Right. So it's actually pretty recent, all things considered. It was coined as a term by a guy named Alan van Nieuwkerk, founder of the Institute for Bioregional Research in 1975. And as a movement, it really gained a lot of popularity in the late 1970s in the Ozarks, Appalachia, Hudson River, and San Francisco Bay Area regions. They had a conference in a prairie, interestingly enough, near Kansas City in 1984. And they've also had conferences in the Squamish bioregion of British Columbia, as well as the Gulf of Maine bioregion on the Atlantic. And of course, with all these different people coming together, sharing all their different ideas, talking about cool nature stuff, they developed a sort of a platform which they outline in papers on subjects ranging from agriculture to forestry to art to economics to community. So while it was a very North American focused movement and philosophy at first, it has also expanded to Europe and Australia. And these groups, there are hundreds of them all over. They get involved with local ecological work like preservation and restoration, permaculture, all that. And they also form networks. So they would link on specific issues like water conservation or organic farming or tree planting. And of course, bioregional groups also get involved in attempts to make communities more self-sufficient by mapping and utilizing local assets. And well, as you'll come to see, bioregionalism and maps kind of go hand in hand in a way, because it really is about that sort of big picture looking at the earth and the environment and our place in it. So what is bioregionalism exactly? In essence, it's a philosophy based around the organization of political, cultural, and economic systems around naturally defined areas called bioregions. So what are bioregions? They are areas defined through physical and environmental features, including watershed boundaries, soil and terrain characteristics, flora, fauna, and climate. Bioregionalism also stresses the determination of a bioregion is a cultural phenomenon and emphasizes local populations, local knowledge, and local solutions. Because humans are actually, surprisingly, part of nature. Our cultures, our settlements, they arise from nature. They arise from the characteristics of the bioregions that we inhabit. So, that to me is a clear bridge between bioregionalism and land back. And it also points to me the fact that while bioregionalism may be a fairly recent philosophy/movement, its roots and the ideas it presents are nothing new. Bioregionalism posits that human societies must learn to honor our bioregions and the connections between them if we are to be ecologically sound. And this perspective is really old news, for the indigenous peoples who have maintained these lands and been stewards of these lands for thousands of years. I think that thinking in a bioregional scale allows us to establish regenerative and circular economies, effectively restore local ecosystems, restructure our systems using ecological design principles, and of course, deepen our cultural connections to the land we inhabit. So that, to me, really stresses the importance of bioregionalism in our approach to environmental issues. Before I continue, I just wanted to say that for those who want to visualize, because I know this is a podcast, you can only hear my voice. One Earth has a pretty decent map of bioregions on their website, so you could just Google bioregions 2020 and it should come up. They basically have 185 bioregions on their map. And well, according to that map, Trinidad is part of bioregion NT21E, NT standing for Neotropic, and E standing for East. And Trinidad is grouped with South America, and particularly the Venezuela, Guyana's region, for obvious reasons, being that the Orinoco and other rivers that come from the Amazon flow out to, Trinidad's shores, really. So, clunky segue. There are a couple different concepts that one might want to keep in mind when approaching or attempting to curate a bioregional understanding of the world. Of course, perspective and a bioregional perspective is important, and it's basically one that seeks to ensure that political boundaries match ecological boundaries, highlighting the unique ecology of the bioregion, encouraging the consumption of local foods where possible, encouraging the use of local materials where possible, and encouraging the cultivation of native plants in the region. I will point out, from now, that from what I've read about bioregionalism and the talks that I've seen, there are definitely some, liberal sensibilities, some capitalist realism, in the way that some bioregionalists talk about, things like organizing our politics and our states and stuff around bioregions. Obviously, they are pushing things pretty far because they do talk about, going and really orienting our economy around, bioregions and thinking in terms of that. But then at the same time, there's still an almost passive acceptance in some of the readings that I've seen of capitalism. I think that's pretty common in a lot of what I like to call almost radical ideas and philosophies and stuff. Of course, when I approach these ideas and these philosophies and stuff, I always try to, keep that anarchist analytical framework in my head, understanding that, these ideas are still being filtered through an ultimately capitalist society and capitalist world. And so you're going to want to try to navigate that and sift that out and really get the nuggets of gold within these ideas. I don't see states, and I think you would agree with me, being the path out of, utter climate catastrophe. For those who have been reading, Against the Grain and, Graeber's work, we would know that states have been pretty ecocidal from their very inception. So I think that if bioregionalism were to be effective, I think it would be best if it stayed away from that sort of statist conception. They do emphasize localism as the political localism, but it's always within the context of, or it's often within the context of the relationship between the local and the state and that sort of thing. Almost like a kind of, I don't know if I'm using this term correctly, but minarchism. If that makes sense? Or is it some kind of municipalism or something like that? But yeah.
Yeah, we should probably talk a little bit about what minarchism and municipalism are, just so people don't get kind of caught up on the terms. And particularly, I think that within a context of the United States, municipalism is kind of an easier way to sell folks who may be more conservative on certain anarchist principles. It's basically the idea of strong community sort of control and autonomy, as opposed to strong overarching kind of federal or state control over different communities.
Yeah.
I was gonna say minarchism's kind of like a weird grab bag thing that's it's sort of okay, so you want to be an anarcho-capitalist, but you can't because you're just smart enough to realize that you can't have property rights without a state. So the minarchist state is the only thing it does is enforce property rights. And yeah, I think that's a slightly terrifying vision. But I think, but it's yeah, I think
it's a bit more self-aware than the average anarcho-capitalist.
Yeah, but this is
yeah, and I think
but that's a low bar.
Municipalism is less of a focus specifically on property rights and more based out of an understanding that like strong hierarchical federal or even state level control generally winds up creating a significant amount of like regional what's the word I'm looking for? Inequalities and is responsible for a lot of like ecological devastation and whatnot. This idea that you can have like one of the things that you would have with an actual municipalist system is you wouldn't be allowed to operate a company like Koch Industries that's able to be based out of, I think, Kentucky, but operate a series of refineries in the Gulf Coast that render large sections of that area uninhabitable because you would leave kind of control over what can be actually done in that area to the people who live there, rather than being able to have a corporation buy land there and have its right to pollute enforced by the state. Right, that's kind of like one little example. There's municipalist. The system in Northeast Syria and Rojava is sort of a municipalist system, and one of the things
specifically libertarian municipalist. Though.
Yeah,
because I mean, there's a distinction between like municipalism more generally and libertarian municipalism.
Yeah, we're getting into the weeds a little bit here, but these are like that's kind of the basics of what those terms mean, just so that people don't get lost when you bring them up, because I think a lot of folks, don't have necessarily that kind of those definitions don't just pop up in their head when you use that word.
Right, yeah, fair enough. I also mentioned that states have been ecocidal from their inception, so I feel like I should probably trying to find that as well. Ecocide and ecocidalism is basically this idea that came out of the environmentalist movement, meant to point to the severe harm to nature, the mass damage and destruction of ecosystems that's caused over decades by these companies and really by the system as a whole. So it's often viewed through like a legal lens, as in, these companies should be tried for their crimes and as like for committing ecocide and that kind of thing. So it's often viewed like as like a legal, like law should be put in place to classify ecocide as a crime and that sort of thing. Only a few countries have done that, like actually codified ecocide, but it is something that some environmentalists push to, really raise awareness of as a crime against humanity and the planet.
Yeah, I think it's also kind of important to understand with ecocide is that like there's a lot of focus, I think, in like left like environmental movements just purely on corporations, and even if you go back to the like 100 companies meme, just like 100 companies destroying the planet, it's like, well, yeah, like half of them are state owned.
Yeah.
And so, this is something like with ecocide, it's like, it's not just corporations that do this. It's, it's the state as a structure. It's the state as an institution. It's the state as
exactly.
Yeah. It's their agencies. It's their sort of,
and that's what when I try to resources. What I realize is kind of important now. And I guess this is kind of like slowly like shifting away from bioregionalism, but that's fine. What I will say that I've tried to like consciously sort of put into practice is emphasizing that like capitalism is not the only issue, I notice people like try to separate capitalism and the state as if they could ever truly be separated. Even people who understand that, anarcho-capitalists are misguided and that, the state is necessary to maintain capitalism. There's some sort of like disconnect where there's like a whole ton of, organization and memeing and all that about capitalism. And, oftentimes these sort of efforts are like, particularly with reformist types and unions and stuff, they try to mediate with capitalism through the state, through the government, whether it be local government or federal government, whatever the case may be. And what I really try to emphasize is that it's not enough to have like a theory of capitalism. I think it's even more important to have a theory of hierarchy, because I think it helps you to avoid getting into these sort of traps of like, class reductionism for one, but also like recreating certain structures within your organizations and in your efforts to change things, recreating the very, circumstances you're fighting against.
You can't like condense everything into one problem, because try as we might, it's not that everything is one problem, it's an interconnected mesh that binds all of our problems together. And you can focus on, really big extensions of that mesh, but it still is kind of just a mesh. And the mesh isn't the thing, but it connects to the edges of all of the things. And yeah, that type of ecology can be useful in even relating to bioregions, in terms of how they also connect with other territories and entities.
I think it also, this is one of the sort of problems that you have if, it's like, okay, so your plan is to take sort of sovereign state power. And it's like, well, you do it, right? But I mean, the thing is, if you seize control of power of a state, right, your borders are essentially just like where the state's war machine ran out of steam. And, and this becomes an enormous problem because, like, I mean, if you look at the bioregional maps, right, it's like there's literally no way you could ever have states with these borders.
No.
Because it's not like this. It's impossible. Like you cannot do it. And what that means is that states are sort of necessarily they're either going to be like a small fraction of a bioregion or they have multiple in them. And that's another that becomes a sort of logistical problem because, like if you want to look at like a lot of the worst sort of ecological sort of like human disasters, it's when you get states attempting to apply like
states logic to environmental issues.
Yeah. It's more specifically like it's they have something that like sort of works in one test environment and then they broadly apply it across an enormous sort of variety of areas and regions that have their own biospheres and have their own, and that stuff that's like the fastest way to kill an enormous number of people.
Yeah.
By just like
it's like forcing a jigsaw piece that obviously doesn't fit into a spot where you want it to, but you're just breaking the pieces.
I just want to say as well that like that sort of, I mean, at least the states are testing it, right? I can't remember the exact name of like the sort of like ideology or whatever. But I think it was like this early Soviet Union, probably one of y'all know the name. This early Soviet Union practice related to like farming that they just applied over like a vast region and end up with like a huge decrease in like food production. I can't remember the name of it. Lysenko.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
he just had this theory and he was just like pushing it, and it led to some serious issues.
Yeah, and I think, if we're going to talk about like what's important about sort of bioregionalism, it's you have to have, if you're going to implement anything, right, you especially when you're trying to sort of manipulate biospheres, you're trying to preserve biospheres, you have to have local knowledge from the people who have been living in these biospheres for, enormous amounts of time. And that's something that states are really bad at and, tend to actively suppress. And it's something, and I will say this, there's a kind of like, there's like a kind of neoliberal version of this stuff where it's like, oh, we'll have like local knowledge, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, well, we'll have local knowledge, but this will help them create market solutions to things. It's like, that also doesn't work. At all. It's basically just them
try to
lying.
marketize, like, that because that really like that doesn't sit well with me, like these sort of like you see like, and you see a lot of liberals like doing it a lot these days, where they'd be like doing the whole land acknowledgements thing, and they'd be doing the that thing where they would just like say that, oh, this is from so and so culture and whatever, and then just like boom,
and
it's
then
1999.
Carry on with business as usual.
Which is I learned this technique from so and so tribe. Now let me work as a consultant for your company. Kind of thing. And it sucks. It sucks.
It's commodifying the thing, and that both produces a warped replication, and then it also kind of makes the original thing seem like used in a weird way as well. Like it wasn't designed to
Tainted.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also reminded a bit of alienation and how we are just sort of separated from, aspects of our actual humanity because of the structures we live under, right? So instead of relating with the environment or relating with our culture or relating with other people, we just relating through like these commodities and these products and these, just bastardized versions of things. And I think that is also something that sort of plagues like some environmentalists. In terms of this, there's almost like this subtle alienation from the nature that many of them seek to preserve, right? Where on the one hand, yes, you're trying to, preserve it and protect it, and that's commendable. But on the other hand, the way you're going about it is basically like antithetical to those goals because you don't have that connection with the nature that you're trying to help. What I see like a lot of people not recognizing is that, humans are a part of nature, right? And this is another bioregional concept, right? This thing called bioregional reinhabitation in being that meaning that we must come home to the geographical and biophysical terrain we inhabit, understand its ecological uniqueness, and familiarize ourselves with the stories woven into the fabric of said land. Its history, its peoples, its cultures, its flora, its fauna. It's only once we come home to our bioregions and to our ecosystems, to our places, that we can really work together to see its potential, to see how we fit into it, how we can facilitate its healing, bioregion by bioregion.
Yeah, that definitely mirrors stuff I've been working on relating to that type of like cognitive dissonance that you're talking about and that alienation, not just from like human to human, but human to place. Because we have like developed this commodified othered version of nature that isn't actually what nature is. It's we've formed this thing that is separate from us, which is not how we need to think about it, because it should be we are all part of the same of that same system. We are not separate from it, and we're not isolated from it or its effects. We are just another part of it. So it's about getting a sense of ecology with both your bioregion and then the biosphere as a whole, and getting that ecology, which kind of will break down this notion of nature being an other. And I think because of the idea of nature being an other, that really kind of fosters our extraction that's led to our current problems, because we don't view the problems affecting us. We view them as affecting the territory. And if we're not the territory, then we can be safe. But that's not the case.
Exactly.
There's also
sorry, go on.
I think I may have talked about this on the show before, but there's another aspect here, which is that viewing humans as sort of like separate from like this abstract nature is how you get a lot of really bad like racist environmentalism. Like if you haven't read The Trouble with Wilderness by Cronin, The Trouble with Wilderness is one of the things that like if you study if you do environmental studies at all, like this is one of the first things they hand you, and the reason they hand it to you is because it, so like the image of wilderness that we have is this sort of like, oh, it's this like completely untapped thing, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, so the reason we have this image of like a wilderness with nothing in it is because there used to be people there and we killed them all, or forcibly deported them.
Yeah,
right?
like
and
when the Europeans pulled up and stuff in North America.
And it's specifically like
untouched wilderness.
Well, and
like, those forests were literally planted and cultivated.
Those forests were, I think, even more pointedly, it should be stated, those forests were a work of engineering that's on par with the pyramids at Giza, if not
absolutely
massively in excess of it. They are a work of engineering that's every bit as impressive as any city ever built, and bit as like intense and required as much knowledge and scientific understanding. People just all of those people had died by the time white folks got
Well,
there, generally because of the
it's
spread of disease or just because of
Like I think that's true, especially on the East Coast. But like with the West Coast, I think it's even grimmer because the West Coast, you and this happened. You still see this where like a lot of like the American national parks were literally like people would go in and ethnically cleanse the population that was there.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, hey, look, it's now wilderness. This is now, and this is like the origin of the environmental movement. It's all of these like, just like the most racist people you've ever seen in your life. Like people,
literal
like
fascists.
Yeah, well, and even before them, like in like early 1800s, like not late 1800s, early 1900s, people like those guys,
the late 1800s.
Yeah, it's like when those guys are talking about like the purity of the wild, like everything they think about the wilderness is also just about the purity of the white race, and it's awful.
Yeah.
And if when you start making that's the separation between humans and nature, like that's how you get this, like that's how you get these ethnic cleansing, like genocide forests.
I've been reading this very good book, just started last night, and I think we're going to have the author on the show soon, Chris Begley. He's an underwater archaeologist, and he wrote a book called The Next Apocalypse that's about collapses throughout history and how they actually differ from the popular conceptions of them. And he actually talks about a lot of the stuff we talk about in this show. And one of the points he makes is that this idea of like lost cities in dark jungles and whatnot is based entirely on misconceptions. First of all, about like what jungles are, and then second on like these very Eurocentric ideas towards what lost means. Like he points out that every time there's been a lost city or civilization discovered, it's because archaeologists just like ask the people living there where the ruins were, and they're like, oh yeah, it's like right over there. Like we've known about this since forever. It was never lost. We just stopped living in that specific area. And the other thing he points out is that like this idea of a jungle as like a difficult and primeval place is ridiculous. If you had to pick anywhere to be stranded in the world in terms of bioregions, you would pick a jungle like the Amazon because it's pretty easy to survive there. That's why people live there for so long. There's a ton of food.
The Amazon was, as we've discovered, there were cities and stuff happening in the Amazon. It was like a planted, cultivated
There's
place,
food jungle, like food forests and whatnot is the term people use within the jungle. Like people set the jungle in the Amazon up to provide them with food in a way that isn't the same as like what we consider to be agriculture, but is absolutely a kind of agriculture.
And because people don't see it as agriculture, it's like, well, that's just, they were just running around the forest before we arrived, It's like, hoo.
Yeah. No, they had essentially built themselves a big smart house in the middle of the woods that provided them with everything they needed, with upkeep that we would consider minimal based on like what a lot of our European ancestors certainly like did in terms of labor to keep farms going. Like if you compare, I mean, you could also talk about how like peasants in the medieval period probably worked less than a lot of people in the United States do today.
Yeah, like everyone works less than we do now. Like,
but it's a lot harder to keep like a monoculture farm going than it is to keep a food forest going.
Because once it's established, it literally maintains itself.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of the book that you were talking about just now?
It's called The Next Apocalypse, and it's very good so far. Chris Begley is the author. I think we're going to have him on next week. But I've found it so far. I'm about a third of the way in. Very good.
Awesome. I'll check that out.
Okay, who wants to say we're back?
You just did
That's
it.
the intro now.
I know. That's
intro
just brought us back, baby.
That's the exit ad pivot.
You're welcome.
Here we are. Awesome. So once we have like embraced our understanding that we belong to the land and not vice versa, and must therefore pattern ourselves and our societies based on its needs, that's when we get to that place of bioregional regeneration, which is another key concept of bioregionalism. And lastly, there's the concept of bioregional sensibility, which was developed by Mitchell Thomashaw, and it's about developing the observational skills to observe the bioregional history, to develop the conceptual skills to juxtapose, the scale of, the community and the region and the ecosystem, the bioregion, all these different levels, the ability to like think in terms of all of them, to develop the imaginative faculties to really, I would say, play with multiple landscapes and to develop the compassion to empathize with and work with both local and global neighbors, not just local and global human neighbors, but also, the flora and fauna living next door. There are a lot of different bioregional practices happening all over the world. I did note that it started in North America, but I noticed that a lot of the big projects are happening in like South America, in Brazil, Sinaldoville, in Costa Rica, Regenerativa, same thing in Colombia, Regenerativa, and the Annapurna Pluriversity in the Himalayas as well, and many others. They're basically engaging in efforts involving applied education, regenerative agriculture, systems mapping, green belt restoration. There's the Green Belt Project in Africa as well. And these are all efforts to really understand and work with the bioregions that these people inhabit. So just a few tips that I wanted to end this off with, before we end things off. I always try to link the things that I talk about in some way to what people and the groups they're part of, the organizations they're part of, the communities they're part of can do, as an action to strengthen their resilience or to develop, autonomy, right? In this case, it is to strengthen resilience and also to develop the vitality of the bioregion you inhabit. So first of all, I think it's important that we learn as much as we can about our areas and learn especially through action, whether it be through cleanups, observing the space around you, whether it be through observing weather patterns, whether it be through looking at going on hikes and looking at the way that the temperature changes and the texture of the soil changes as you go up and down in altitude. I think it's also important to try to get involved with actions to restore natural features and to understand the place that those natural features have in the broader bioregion. Of course, there are lots of sustainable projects happening all over the world. If there aren't any in your area, be the change you want to see, start one, make it happen. And really also, I would say, find ways to link projects for environmental sustainability and restoration with projects for human emancipation. Find ways to support access to basic human needs within your locality. To find ways to because when we speak of bioregions and living within our bioregions and so on and so forth, that's all well and good. But if, for example, your region has to import a whole bunch of food all the time to support the population, I think there needs to be ways to decrease that sort of import and to find ways to live sustainably within the area. Raise awareness, of course, as well, about bioregional thinking, systems thinking, social ecological thinking, and just get to work, anti-work, prefiguring the structures of a more horizontal, bioregionally ethical, and sustainable way of life. And of course, disrupt the projects that get in the way of those goals. And I say that as tentatively as I can to avoid legal trouble. That's it. Take care, everyone, and be kind to every little thing. Peace.
Hi, this is Jill Winterstein, host of the Spirit Daughter podcast, where we talk about astrology, natal charts, and how to step into your most vibrant life. And I just sat down with a Minnie Driver.
The Irish traveller said when I was 16, you're going to have a terrible time with men.
Actor, storyteller, and unapologetic Aquarian visionary. Aquarius is all about freedom-loving and different perspectives, and I find a lot of people with strong placements in Aquarius are misunderstood. A Sun and Venus in Aquarius in her 7th house spark her unconventional approach to partnership.
He really has taught me to embrace people sleeping in different rooms, on different houses, in different places, but just an embracing of the isness of it all.
If you're navigating your own transformation or just want a chart-side view into how a leading artist integrates astrology, creativity, and real life, this episode is a must listen. Listen to the Spirit Daughter podcast starting on February 24th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
China's Ministry of State Security is one of the most mysterious and powerful spy agencies in the world. But in 2017, the FBI got inside.
This is Special Agent Regal, Special Agent Bradley Hall.
This MSS officer has no idea the U.S. government is onto him. But the FBI has his chats, texts, emails, even his personal diary. Hear how they got it on the 6th Bureau podcast.
I now have several terabytes of an MSS officer, no doubt, no question, of his life. And that's a unicorn.
No one had ever seen anything like that. It was unbelievable.
This is a story of the inner workings of the MSS and how one man's ambition and mistakes opened its vault of secrets.
Listen to the 6th Bureau on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
In 2023, a story gripped the UK, evoking horror and disbelief.
The nurse who should have been in charge of caring for tiny babies is now the most prolific child killer in modern British history.
Everyone thought they knew how it ended. A verdict, a villain, a nurse named Lucy Letby.
Lucy Letby has been found guilty.
But what if we didn't get the whole story?
The moment you look at the whole picture, the case collapses.
I'm Amanda Knox, and in the new podcast, Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby, we follow the evidence and hear from the people that lived it to ask what really happened when the world decided who Lucy Letby was.
No voicing of any skepticism or doubt.
It'll cause so much harm at every single level of the British establishment of this is wrong.
Listen to Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to It Could Happen Here, a podcast that is remarkably today not really so much about things falling apart and is mostly about things, in fact, getting better and how we can do that. I'm your host, Christopher. With me today is Garrison, and we're also joined by Nick and Max, who are two members of the artist collective Solarpunk Surf Club, who have released a very, very interesting new game that we are here in part to talk about called Solarpunk Futures. Hello, Nick. Hi, Max. How are you two doing?
Hey, doing well, thanks. Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, excited to have you two on. So I guess my first question is, how did you two get into game design and sort of first have the idea to do a sort of like political gaming project like this?
It's a good question. So we're definitely not game designers by profession or trade. We're members of the artist collective Solarpunk Surf Club, and we're particularly interested in creating artwork and social practice that prefigures these kinds of egalitarian futures that we'd like to see in the world. And so this game was something that we've been kind of a project that we've been thinking about and sitting on for a little while, and was kind of something that made us got us excited. And we think there's a whole bunch of other reasons that we think it's a really cool project to work on, an important project. And so we kind of took a deep dive headfirst into the world of game design and learning how to do that over the past year or so.
Okay, so how about we, I guess, also start with, I guess, explaining what Solarpunk Futures is and sort of how it works, and then we can get into the sort of political aspect of like this sort of game design project.
So Solarpunk Futures is a storytelling game where players imagine pathways to a desirable future by collaboratively overcoming real-world challenges. The object of the game is to collectively remember one of the stories that grew into our utopia. The idea is that through backcasting, where you assume within the context of the game that players are already in utopia, and merely remembering back to their ancestors' struggle, that players can transcend the idea that what currently exists must necessarily exist, which social theorist Murray Bookchin described as the acid that corrodes all visionary thinking. So we wanted to make a system to facilitate collaborative performance, we call it a collaborative performance of memory, but one that combines sincerity with laughter and speculative storytelling.
The game also combines a lot of different elements that we saw in other games, collaborative storytelling, cooperative gameplay, some elements of role-playing, and different kind of mechanics that we thought would build out that kind of, like I said earlier, those prefigurations of those egalitarian worlds. So we were trying to make a game that had the fiction and the idea of utopia built in terms of the goals of the game, but it was also, we wanted to build it into some of the mechanics of how the game is actually played too.
My question from here is sort of, well, I mean, I guess firstly is, I think, what sort of specifically drew you to Solarpunk as sort of an aesthetic for this? Like, I know there's been a lot of sort of like the kind of social ecology Solarpunk fusions, but I'm interested in what drew you specifically to it.
So we see Solarpunk as a visionary utopian politics and aesthetic that critically engages the reality of capitalist catastrophe while maintaining a radical optimism about humanity's hopes for a communal ecological future. Nick was just speaking to this. We see it as a restorative justice process on a planetary scale among people, between humans and non-human nature. So that means reclaiming pieces of the past, pre-capitalist culture. That means material accountability for old practices. And it also means radical adaptability towards new ones. I think it provided a useful way of synthesizing several currents that we had already been thinking about and involved in between new media and social practice. Thinking not just about images and objects in space, but also the set of social relations that those things produce.
Yeah, we're like partisans within Solarpunk. I don't think there's too many pro-capitalists within Solarpunk, but I think there are some people who are maybe drawn to the aesthetic, but don't necessarily have a politics. But we do think that there's a kind of a latent horizontalism, a latent anarchistic politics in a lot of the aesthetics around Solarpunk. And so as a collaborative as an aesthetic that is being defined collaboratively by people online and elsewhere, we wanted to kind of stake out a position about what we thought a really realistic utopian world might look and feel like.
Yeah, and I think this is something else I know YouTube been very passionate about, is about specifically using games as a medium to do this, and this as like this kind of storytelling remembrance as a specifically political intervention. So could you talk a bit more about, questions like, okay, so why this and not on the sort of less like why this and not guerrilla gardening, or why this and not some other kind of organizing, et cetera, et cetera. I'm interested to hear you two say about that.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to hate on guerrilla gardening. I definitely think it's a both
cool.
and situation.
Yeah.
It's also in the game.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of the cards, one of the tools that you get to use as an ancestor. Yeah, I think, there's a lot of different things that we were thinking about when we were thinking about why a game that I got a little bit into earlier. But, for one, I think it helps reach a broad and often depoliticized audience with a fun way to kind of engage in some thorny political questions. I think that games as a participatory medium were especially interesting for people who are interested in sort of anarchistic modes of teaching and education, like education through doing rather than lecture. Although, we also read a lot of good political theory, so I'm not opposed to that. And then I think games are also fun, and there's a lot of political organizing and activism work that happens out there that's hard, and that is necessary to do. But just because a lot of the important work to be done is hard doesn't mean everything that's hard is important and everything that's fun is, trifling or not going to help us get where we're going and overthrow capitalism and build a new world. So, those are some of the reasons.
And I think that's especially sort of an interesting point, because I think a lot of what happens in leftist spaces, you get a bunch of people doing stuff and they burn out really fast because, you're doing an enormous amount of work. It's all miserable. A lot of the times you're getting physically assaulted. And like, I think that's one of the things that's interesting to me about this is you need other forms of sort of community building and sort of like, you need other forms of organizing that do not involve you being repeatedly traumatized over and over again. And that, and especially just working on something like this and then, I don't know, just playing with your friends and having things that are like collaborative and joyful and community building is, I think, very important as a way to just, even just, this is on a very basic logistical level, like prevent people from burning out.
Yeah. And I definitely think that there's a role there to prevent people from burning out and inspiring people with some of the fun ideas, the ideas that they come up with when they're not looking at a Google Doc meeting notes, but instead they're playing a card game and maybe drinking a couple of beers, and they're like, oh, how would I combine guerrilla gardening and, performance art to bring about, to solve a specific challenge of capitalism, like deforestation, or these are some of the cards in the game. And so I think it can be inspiring. It's also, it can be educational. I played with some family. I think the first time I played when we got the physical copy that wasn't a playtest was with some family, and they don't necessarily identify as leftists of any kind, but we had a really fun game where we explored ideas of deconstructing borders and, they were it wasn't like I was guiding them in this direction. It was just kind of the assumption of the game that there was utopia got beyond this ingrained capitalist realism, that there just isn't, that there isn't an alternative. And they're like, okay, well, the game says we're already in utopia, so that means there's no private property. And I was like, whoa, that's a jump I didn't expect from my family.
One thing I'm interested in terms of how it functions as a game, is like balancing the actual more, I don't know, fun-based like role-playing game elements with like its kind of structure as a thought exercise and like a world-building game. Like how do you approach trying to get a balance of like fun role-playing as well as this type of like reverse world building?
I was kind of I was still a little bit on the why a game in the first place question, but I'm also intrigued by the balancing fun and politics question. If you don't mind, I wanted to go back to the why a game for just a second, because I think maybe it will lead into this.
Yeah.
Games are, an ancient form of art. I know I said we work in new media before, but games are actually an ancient form of art, and I would argue social practice. There's a game called Senet. There's a game called The Royal Game of Ur, which both date to 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia, respectively. In making the game, we did a bunch of research on the history of games. There's a 15th century game called the Game of the Goose from present day Italy that paired like these gorgeous illustrations also with like didactic moral instruction. In the early 20th century, the Surrealists created a series of games with the intention of breaking through traditional thought patterns and unleashing the potentials of the unconscious. They also wanted to subvert academic modes of inquiry. And then today, some of our most popular tabletop games, I think Nick was mentioning this earlier, how they can sometimes inscribe oppressive logics. So, rather than a game where you're competing against other players to drive them into poverty, or a game where you're trying to colonize other players' land, for the purpose of world domination, we wanted to make a game that actually practices the cooperation, interdependence, care, consent, these things that will be needed, if we're actually to transcend the social and ecological crises of our day. And kind of to that point, I would say that games always reflect the beliefs and norms of their historical context. So with Solarpunk Futures, we wanted to kind of flip the script and project using, the modalities of like speculative fiction, collaborative performance, as I mentioned, the values and mores of a desirable future. So games are very, human thing, an ancient human thing. And why do people play games? As I mentioned, education is part of it. But also building social bonds is another important piece. And that always is accompanied. It's a very like academic way of talking about it maybe, but it is fun. It has to be fun. That's why people do it.
Yeah. In terms of to get a little deeper into the balancing question, every game is a balance between a bunch of different competing factors. There's a lot of people who will talk about the balance between randomness and planning in games, and the balance between structure and freeform. And it's definitely something, if there's any game designers out there thinking about making, games like this, playtesting, it will help you so much, because, the game in a rough form existed in the spring of last year, but playtesting really helped us refine a lot of those questions and find that kind of balance between structure and freeformness. We wanted it to be accessible to people who aren't D&D players, but we've also played with people who play a lot of D&D and GM and all this stuff, and they took it in a lot of fun and wild directions that we didn't expect, that helped inform kind of new ways that we could, we added some optional rules in there for people who want to take it in a different direction or add more complexity or for other people who need a little bit like a handhold and want to flip a coin to decide something rather than come up with it totally on their own. So I think it's a hard thing to balance all the different factors that go into a game, but I definitely think playtesting and all the people who played with us in those early games really helped us figure out the right balance.
And to your earlier point about burnout, like activist burnout, some people who we've invited to play the game maybe have expressed this idea of like, well, I'd love to, but I don't have time. And maybe they think of gaming, and I know I've certainly been guilty of this too, of feeling like guilt over things that feel like an indulgence, like you should be doing the real work all the time. But, I think it's important to hold that in the perspective of the tradition of feminism, civil rights advocates, others on the left that have talked about the importance of joy that needs to be integral to our struggles. There's the famous Emma Goldman quip, "If I can't dance, it's not my revolution." So perhaps, these ideas of like guilt and shame or martyrdom or whatever are kind of toxic parts of the old world that we need to let go of. So I guess this is kind of coming back to say that there's, as Nick was saying, there is an ethical prefigurative case of how games can allow people to express themselves through play, but there's also a tactical one, and that games can be a structured way of thinking about how do we create a liberated society.
One other thing I think is sort of interesting about, well, I guess this is somewhat less true of tabletop games as a medium, because tabletop games are a lot of sort of collaborative storytelling-ish stuff. But like I know I play a lot of video games, right? And it's like a lot of the structure of what gaming is sort of like it basically just turns into like another job that you have, and it's interesting. Yeah, it's like, I mean, and you get the same. You even get like like crossover between the terminology of I think like grinding is like
you have to grind.
Grind. I think that came from gaming first and then moved over into the weird grind set stuff. But
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And gamification, right? That's another way that like gaming is being almost like weaponized by capitalism to get squeezed just a little bit more out of everyone.
Yeah. There's a really interesting article whose name I am forgetting because I am. Yeah, but Vicky Osterwald wrote it like a while ago. That was about how like games are like it's you sort of mechanically doing the same thing over and over and over again. But it's a problem because it's like it's labor that's like too perfect. Like it doesn't create anything. There's no sort of like there's no sort of like aspect that produces like value that could be extracted. You're just doing the thing over and over again, and it's like, and that becomes a problem for capital in some sense. Is why there's all these panics about like everyone being addicted to gaming, because it's like, well, okay, you're not making money for us. And but I think it's interesting.
Instead of playing Truck Simulator, you could be driving some actual trucks.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting that this is a political intervention into that, of creating something that's precisely the opposite of that. That it's you're not sort of like it's not just like an incredible intensification of the sort of like reward systems of working. It's, hey, we're going to come together and we're going to make collaborative decisions and overcome challenges. And I think that's a very interesting sort of political angle to come at this from.
Yeah, I think a lot of tabletop games in particular, compared to video games, I think, well, I'll say role-playing games in particular, put you in a driver's seat in a way that I think is hard, right? Like sometimes I'm too tired to, I think I'm, I have a D&D night and I'm like, I don't know if I have the energy for this after working all day. Whereas I might have energy to play, a video game RPG that kind of walks me, handholds me through a story. It's kind of more like watching, more passive. But I do think that there's something so important about thinking through what it might be like to live in this utopian society. And it's important, I think, because if we don't, well, for one, a ton of people just don't even think about it. And so to the extent that this game is something that gets bought or played with families of people who are, one of the many people who have been depoliticized in this country, I think that can be really helpful. But I also think that I've played it and I've found really fun and exciting ideas that I wouldn't have thought about if I was staring at a power map or something and thinking, where can we intervene in my city to, help solve this or that problem. So I think there's power there.
So I think one of the other things I think's interesting to me about how you two sort of the team put this project together is that it's also like, so like you can buy the versions of it that have like very, very nice art, but you also just put the cards and the rules up for free and you can just sort of print and play it. So I wonder, if you could talk a bit about the decision to do that.
Democratic accessibility is really important to us. It's part of the concept that we wanted to integrate into every aspect of the game's production and distribution. And so, the whole thing is available as a free print and play PDF download. It's all Creative Commons licensed. So that's, and, at the same time, as you mentioned, we are interested in materiality and wanted to create something that could accompany, a face-to-face interaction as well, which is, frankly, well, I'll just speak for myself. That's probably more my interest. Even though I think, we have a tabletop simulator version too, which I think is really cool. But as far as the decision to make the game, free forever, we want people to play. We want it to be genuinely useful. This is not a capitalistic business venture. We're running a break-even budget and want to just keep doing projects and, elaborating like the solar punk tradition and connecting it to social, ecological, communalist politics. So if this can be a catalyst towards being able to do more of that, then that's, we'll have succeeded on our terms, at least.
What's the status of physical copies? How can people, if they want to use cards and stuff, how would one go about getting those?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. People can download the free print and play if they like. If they really love it, they want to buy the physical copy. We sold out of the kind of first edition that we were able to afford to print, but we're raising money on Kickstarter for a second edition. So if people back us at a certain tier there, I think it's $45 or higher, you get a copy of the game when we're able to print them. And so, so it's a... and of course, as Max mentioned, you can also play on Tabletop Simulator. But we're really excited about it. I think we're also hoping to take it around to some, political workshops, probably on Zoom for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Maybe tabletop game conventions and stuff. And also some art shows, to be announced, but there's a couple art shows that we're excited to be showing it in. So, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'm really excited about in terms of playing this at some point is I think starting from the point of like you're trying to build the world now, it's really easy to run into ruts. Starting at the end point and then working backwards, I think because that produces that reverse type of thought, I think it's a little bit easier for it to find the path than just starting here and looking at the world and being like, oh, how do we do anything to make it better? Instead of being at the opposite place and being like, what is the way to backtrack? I think can maybe give you some connections and ideas that you may not have had otherwise, because we're kind of always stuck in the now. How do we get to now better? So I would be very excited to try this out at some point and experience that backtrack thinking, because I think it's I'm really intrigued with that specific aspect of the game, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Solarpunk games within the next decade probably, and this is one aspect that I think actually is really unique and something that's not just intrinsic to Solarpunk. It's something that's kind of been added on, so that's something I'm really excited about, and would love to pick this up soon.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think one of the things that we hope that the game does is help people break through that capitalist realism.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, there is no alternative. It's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism,
Yeah.
etc. And similarly, if you ask people to imagine the future, it's very hard.
Yeah.
And if they are able to at all, it is often extrapolating sort of the worst trends of today into a dystopian future.
I remember. This is slightly off topic, but I remember. So when I was in middle school or something, we had this assignment where we had to write what our perfect like utopian society would be, and we did it, and 3/4 of the societies people come up with were just the worst imaginable dystopia, and it was just it's just such a grim sort of.
Yeah, if I was gonna make what I thought was an accurate prediction of the future, it might be more similar to the first season of this podcast than some of the hopeful futures. But I also don't think the door is closed on any kind of Solarpunk future. I think it's important. One of the important aspects that we included that makes Solarpunk different than just kind of vague utopianism is that we ask people to also think about the barriers they run into, to think about who's gonna oppose you if you're trying to deal with polluted water, and you find some really great system and improve a region's water supply. Nestle might come in and buy the rights to the whole region, the whole watershed. So imagining that opposition, the material conditions that might change and how you'd adapt to them, we hope that's something that people also benefit from who play this game and make some predictions about the strategic decisions that capital is going to make to oppose your utopian vision.
And I hope there are more Solarpunk games. Like you said, I hope there's a preponderance of Solarpunk art in the next decade. That'd be amazing. And to what you were just saying, you're right. Solarpunk doesn't mean the end of politics. Doesn't mean the absence of conflict. So I think we tried to integrate that into the game. What makes a good Solarpunk story is that it is plausible, yet distinctly anti-dystopian rather. It provides a glimpse into a future possibility for, say, the reharmonization of humans with other humans with non-human nature, and that is going to involve some amount of opposition on the one hand and reconstruction on the other. In short, to to critique by building, as the slogan goes.
All right, yeah. Plugs time. What do you two have plugs?
So yeah, we have an upcoming live stream on Twitch with Veterans for Peace. They have some Gamers for Peace, and Tuesday night on the 18th at 8 p.m. they're going to be playing Solarpunk Futures with us. If people are interested in the game, they can download it for print and play on our website at http://thefuture.wtf. And people can also find the link to our Kickstarter on that website if they're interested in pre-ordering a physical copy, which we very much appreciate. We're getting close to funded.
That's very exciting. I hope it gets funded. I want to see more of these because the art is extremely cool. And yeah. Well, thank you two for coming on. This has been It Could Happen Here, and we'll see you the next time an episode goes up. I don't know when that's going to be right now, so yeah, wonderful extras.
Hey, we'll be back Monday with more episodes every week from now until the heat death of the universe.
It Could Happen Here is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more podcasts from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find sources for It Could Happen Here updated monthly at coolzonemedia.com/sources. Thanks for listening.
Hi, it's Jill Winterstein, host of the Spirit Daughter podcast, where we talk about astrology, natal charts, and how to step into your most vibrant life. And today I'm talking with my dear friend, Krista Williams.
It can change you in the best way possible. Dance with the change, dance with the breakdowns.
The embodiment of Pisces intuition with Capricorn power moves.
So I'm like delusionally proud of my chart.
Listen to the Spirit Daughter podcast starting on February 24th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
I'm Clayton Eckerd. In 2022, I was the lead of ABC's The Bachelor.
But here's the thing. Bachelor fans hated him.
If I could press a button and rewind it all, I would.
That's when his life took a disturbing turn. A one-night stand would end in a courtroom.
The media is here. This case has gone viral.
The dating contract.
Agree to date me, but I'm also suing you.
This is unlike anything I've ever seen before.
I'm Stephanie Young. Listen to Love Trapped on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Amanda Knox, and in the new podcast, Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby, we unpack the story of an unimaginable tragedy that gripped the UK in 2023. But what if we didn't get the whole story?
Evidence has been made to fit.
The moment you look at the whole picture, the case collapses.
What if the truth was disguised by a story we chose to believe?
Oh my God, I think she might be innocent.
Listen to Doubt, the Case of Lucy Letby on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Special Agent Regal, Special Agent Bradley Hall.
In 2018, the FBI took down a ring of spies working for China's Ministry of State Security, one of the most mysterious intelligence agencies in the world.
The Sixth Bureau podcast is a story of the inner workings of the MSS and how one man's ambition and mistakes opened its vault of secrets.
Listen to The Sixth Bureau on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.